What's up, viewers and listeners? My name is Jay. I'm a registered nutritionist based here in Bristol, working with BJJ enthusiasts across the globe, helping jiu-jitsu practitioners perform to their best ability on and off the mat, whilst making sure they are not doing anything stupid with those weight cuts they have to do. On today's episode, we had Garry Hewson. He is a very recent black belt under Chico Mendes at Checkmat Bristol. Garry has competed at a majority of belt levels. In this podcast, we talked about training at multiple different clubs, losing some body fat, how points are better than sub only, logging food, secret black belt handshakes, and much, much more. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, if you're not subscribed, please click that button and turn on post notifications for further updates. Thank you for watching and listening. Let's get into episode 15. Oos. Right, guys, here we are, episode 15 of the BJJ Nutrition Podcast. My name is Jay, I'm the host here. We help, obviously, with the BJJ Nutrition Consultancies, athletes to perform to their best with the right foods while not doing anything silly with their weight cuts. Now, today we have our next guest, who is
Garry Hewson.
Garry Hewson. Do you want to give us an introduction to yourself, mate? What club you represent? And obviously, your lineage is always a good one.
Sure, lineage, yeah. So, black belt out of Checkmat Bristol under Rich Long as the head coach here. We're running out of Elite MMA in Avonmouth at the moment. His coach is Chico Mendes, so we go right back to the sort of founding fathers of Checkmat. Been training about 11 years, just over. Nice. So, yeah, I'm getting an old man in the jiu-jitsu world. Starting to feel it, but yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, obviously for those viewers, I'm aware of this, but obviously you recently got your black belt.
Very recently. I want to stress how recently. I feel very... That imposter syndrome's a real thing, you know. Yeah, it's tough.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, you've got, I don't know, it's probably like that view that 10 years into the jiu-jitsu game that you're going to be at the 10-year mark, the black belt's going to be coming along.
You start feeling stupid, you don't have it after a while, and you're like, I should probably get it, and then as soon as you get it, it's like, I'll just be a brown belt forever. That's
kind of like my white belt mentality. I think I've mentioned it a few times before that I was always interested in getting the All-Stars Absolute belt.
Okay.
And it was like, all right, cool. I already won a few competitions and stuff.
Yep.
I was like, wicked, let's go and get his absolute belt type thing. Time to smash another white belt. This week before, here's your blue belt. I'm like, fuck, this is not what I wanted.
It's double-edged, right? Because you get the psychological boost.
Yeah.
You get your purple belt, it's like, well, I'm not losing 20 blue belts again.
Yeah.
And the close matches you had with other blue belts, it's suddenly they're not close. You're sort of always winning because you're just not letting it happen. But then you feel that chase of people like trying to...
And then you have the other side of it where you're like, oh, a purple belt, and you get smashed by another purple belt, and you're like, fuck, this is a different wake-up call.
This is my reality of my first comp at black belt was like, smashed is probably a bit unfair to myself, but took a couple of losses, and it was like, okay, new world. Brown belt was okay, and this has sort of opened up the big boys.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always kind of joke, have your black belt levels loaded in or type of thing, or your superpowers loaded into yourself now?
I wanted the magical powers to sort of kick in earlier. We had Chico Mendes for a seminar, and the first seminar was here, and I sort of dodged him. Not that I was trying to duck him. The second seminar I was up at Worcester, and he's like, oh, we're rolling the next one. And he put ... like a bit ominous. And I was like, okay. And I was like, be careful, I've got magical powers now. And, didn't work out like that.
No, I bet you realised that as well when you did get a chance to roll down here. You probably put it on a hit list, like where are you?
Yeah. It's good within your local club because that hierarchy always usually makes sense in your own club. Like you can beat the brown belts and they can beat the purple belts, and it all sort of lines up. It sort of has to in your own club, but I like to cross-train and dot about and go to different open mats and things, and you can get some high-level purple belts here and there.
Definitely.
And you get the other way as well, so it all balances out.
I think you're very much in the same club with me of being like a bit of a gym gypsy. I know where my home is, as I always say. I know obviously where my original club is, but I love going around to other gyms and just rolling with them, which I think is a bit of a controversial opinion because some clubs don't like the idea of people going to...
Crayonch.
Yeah, like don't want to go to other gyms and this type of stuff. And I'm like... It's kind of as you said, you can find your, I don't know, where you are in that sort of, I don't know, pecking order within your own club, right? But I couldn't think, the only other chance you're going to have a trial, obviously against other people, is going to be in competition.
Yeah.
And I think...
And how often can you compete, really? I mean, even money-wise.
Money-wise, and then there's obviously the drama at the moment. I think there's only like 3 weeks ago, you had 3 major competitions on the same weekend. I think it was Somerset Open, Brighton Open, and I think there was another one.
I remember Brighton was back to back.
Empire as well, I think it was.
Was it the same weekend?
All on the same day.
Oh,
and it's just like, and you can see why the numbers are sort of diminishing from it and everything. But yeah, I think.
And the categories. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to get into this eventually, but the categories, it's getting a little bit out of hand. I mean,
yeah, massively. I think
weight grade, I mean, everything, fair enough, but when you get one match, and everyone I know is getting one match or two matches, and then you just get middleweight blue belts who get like 50 matches, and then everyone else is struggling to get a match, it's like, let's mix up a little. It doesn't have to be like freestyle wrestling where you literally have to go against like national champion first day out, but because it's just weight, but let's mix up a little bit more, make the categories a bit bigger.
Well, I know obviously I sort of float between masters 1 and sort of adult, depending obviously on the numbers and stuff. And I'll openly admit that I don't like facing obviously same opponents because I'm like, right, okay, unless I've lost, I'll say, if I'm honest, like, because in that case I want to try and obviously do one over on them type of thing, as anyone would.
I'm in that situation right now. I'm signing up to something and chasing them down a weight category.
And then on top of that as well is the case of I don't want to fight people that I know already. So like,
and you train with.
Yeah,
that's a bit.
Like, because of being a bit of a gym gypsy, you end up obviously rolling with different people. And like, I think even going down to Rising Tide the other week, one of my opponents was a guy I didn't get the chance to roll with down in there, and it was unfortunate, but he rolled my ankle that morning, which just, that's another story for another day. But I was in my head, I was like, okay, fine. Well, I can't.
But you had someone down there in comp?
I was due to fight one of his guys from Rising Tide.
So you just thought I'd just go down to an open mat sort of thing?
No, instead. So in my head I'm like, because we didn't get to do the chance to the competition, I'm tempted just to pop down there one weekend and go, hey, let's go and have the match that we didn't have to have.
Yeah.
And it's, again, one of those things which I don't want to fight people that I know, because I'm then like, okay, I can't mentally get in the right headspace for it, if that makes sense, because I'm like, I don't know, BFG type of mindset, big friendly giant, I don't want to hurt anyone, not in the interest of just smashing people for the sake of it, there's no benefit type of thing. But yeah, sorry, back to my original question. What's your thoughts on obviously your cross training? I know obviously you do it and stuff, but do you think there's any sort of pros or cons to it type of thing at all?
I think it's all pros. I think the leftover mentality, that Koreanchi thing, people call me that as a joke. Hopefully it's half joking. But because my work situation, I was originally Isle of Wight, and I've gone one belt promotion in every club I've been in, and this is sort of the only gym I've done the last 2 belts. I've done brown to black.
So you're due to leave now? Is that what you're planning?
Yeah, where do I go? Someone give me my coral belt, I'll come see you. But no, I did white to blue on the Isle of Wight, and then I was in London working. I did 2 different places in London. I did a little stint in Japan, when we get into that. I did Tokyo for 6 months, just traveling, but I trained out there. And I ended up here, and so I've sort of done not cross training, but I've been about a bit, not just because I had to, because I was moving.
Yeah.
First thing you do when you find a new town is you find a jiu-jitsu club before you find anything else.
Yeah.
And so it was just natural. As soon as I came here, depending on the numbers of your club, especially after COVID, we had limited numbers. Some people didn't come back. Some people were scared to come back early doors. So I just naturally dotted about. We couldn't get all our sessions back as well. We're doing 1 day a week.
Yeah.
Before we found this place, which was like a godsend. We did 1 day a week at the Active Centre there in Bradley Stoke, and so I had to start supplementing sessions like other places, and then so I fell in with Rich Rubino. Shout out to Rich Rubino.
Hey, not Pit. Our Jiu-Jitsu.
Our Jiu-Jitsu. He sort of put out the message, put out the bat signal, like free to train here. Sort of just turn up, get stuck in, no politics. Those guys got a little shout out in the black belt speech. It was one of those things where it just came exactly at the right time. Especially brown to black, I was doing that sort of hunting the black belt thing. I took that quite seriously, the brown belt run. I didn't want to just be, that's my 2-3 years at brown belt, time served sort of thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to really make sure I was doing everything I could. And getting the sessions in is like the bare minimum. You have to be training a lot. And so that came right at the right time. And it was such a good level there as well.
Nice.
And then the bank, I've been even at Baja here in Bradley Stoke. There's only a few places I haven't checked out yet, like Bristol Dojo. I've been meaning to go to AOJ.
They're in AOJ, yeah.
AOJ with, is it Rad there?
I think so.
Yeah. I bumped into it at the competition at Somerset, but I've been meaning to go down to open mat there. One of my friends from London ended up
going there. Okay, cool.
So I want to eventually check out everywhere. Rising Tide I go to often, so I'll be in there. Worcester with Pool 7. Just get about, why not?
Yeah.
Different body types, different games.
I just don't see the reservation of the cons where people just don't like it. I just don't. I can understand maybe.
I mean, if you're going and getting technique in a class and then coming back, it's only really that. But then again, what technique isn't about now? It's more how your coaching style is, because every technique exists on the internet.
Exactly.
It's how you convey it.
I think I can understand the reservations of, I don't know, someone's trying to nurture you to obviously level up your skills, and when you're going to other clubs and having that interfering thing, or this guy tells me to do it like this, or she tells me to do it like that type of thing, where I can see that frustration kicking in, if that makes sense. Or as I kind of said to you, I know where my home is, in the sense that I'll get the majority of my classes done and like sessions and like what training done in a particular place. But it's kind of like, I don't know, going out for a restaurant meal on the weekend type thing. I'm like, let's go to an open mat somewhere else and just see how especially when you get to you drill a technique, let's say, which your club's been doing. Other clubs are going to be very unlikely to be drilling that same technique on that week type thing. To then go and do it in an open mat, you get a real live reaction from it, I feel, and then you can see, does this work, does this not work, what other details have I got to change type thing. And I think that's an attribute to it. So I think we've all been there where we've, I don't know, doing foot sweep drills, right? We all know your partner that you're training with has to give you a very natural reaction for it to work. Otherwise, you're just kicking each other's shins all the time type thing. And there's no better environment to do that in, like I said, an open mat, or it's going to be the competition floor, which by then, do you really want to be trying a new technique on the competition floor? Probably not. So it's a bit interesting.
You can't get enough technique and different looks at different positions. And, you know, I was training with Mark Hibbs. And we were just literally randomly a few days before he did London, just looking at a position, and he likes the Kimura from side control, and I try and counter it. Not with that success really recently.
I think someone at Grapplers trying to do that as well.
He's got a decent Kimura. And then we looked at something about how to reverse the position, I think on top, and then it just came up a few days later at the London, and he directly used it to win the match.
That's cool.
And it's like, I think, or at least it went into whatever to win in the match. But I like that, the idea that you just see like tiny bits of details here and there. And I remember, was it Dan? I think it's Faraz Sahabi talking about George St. Pierre, and saying that, you know, if you're a few weeks out from a comp, there's only so much you can improve your cardio. But you get one tiny detail on how to sort of escape a really sunken guillotine or something, and that can be literally win or lost sort of territory. And the tiny little detail, if you can remember it and it comes up, and it's right. My guy in my first brown belt match, I was playing a lot of 50-50, and I used that to basically win the match. Ended with submission, but I was trying to get up on points with these sweeps. Everyone hates 50-50, I know, apologies. But he said, I've only just started drilling that this week before. So he had a little bit in the tank, but it was like not enough. I was like, he's only done it the last few days. And if he'd been doing it all that month, maybe I wouldn't have got the result. But you can't get enough, do you know what I mean? So cross-training is just another way of just seeing different technique.
I had a bit of a similar moment, which went against me more than anything else, in the sense that I went to one of Drake's competitions they had. They're doing an all-in-house type thing, which anyone can.
I've seen those, They're
looking pretty decent, to be fair. And well, as you probably know, I enjoy single leg X as well. Anyone who sees any highlights of mine, I do it quite a bit. And I try my best when I go to competitions. First couple of matches, do something else different, right? And obviously, if you're really struggling, we'll go to your favourite stuff.
That's against my religion. I do the same thing every time,
Try a bit of different. Obviously, again, there's a different level of expertise, mate. Obviously, where I am in comparison to you, definitely. In the sense you're way further than I am. But yeah, it's the case of when I did the first couple of matches, first one got a takedown, side control, got his back, eventually just subbed in with a rear naked choke. Awesome. Second match was with Kimura from, I think it was like from north-south, again, wicked.
So you're actively trying different things each match?
Yeah, again, I still liked the movements from it, so in terms of...
Is it round robin, their format of Drake?
Well, there was...
But you get a lot of matches, right?
You get a lot of matches, there's about 3...
So you can experiment?
You can experiment and stuff, but the techniques I used for it, again, like, I really enjoyed them and probably drilled them quite a bit in terms of that, so again, it might be just the fact, obviously, I'm still only a blue belt and I haven't got many to choose from.
That's good.
But had that, and then the last opponent, again, it got in my head, I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy looks jacked and juicy and just huge and everything like this.
Back to single leg X.
And I'm like, right, do you know what, he hasn't seen me do single leg X yet, so maybe this will be in my locker, right? Pulled it, locked it in, and I was like, cool, he's obviously got the sweep for it, which is wicked. I was really lazy with my outside foot, to which then he grabbed it and started pulling on it straight away. And I was like, right, and tried to get out of it, a little bit of toing and throwing, so I think there's a couple of moments with that, and eventually he then got the submission, which I'm a little bit pissed about because the ref actually said, "Oh, I've seen enough now." Didn't even let me tap to it.
Oh, really?
And I was like, right, not to get into.
I guess it's just like a interclub. They're just trying to keep everyone safe down there.
I don't get into too much politics, but again, when
you're like, let me die on my sword.
I wanted my leg to snap.
Yeah.
So it wasn't on my ankle; it was more my fucking shin bone. And it was like afterwards, I was like limping a bit. I was like, Jesus Christ, that was enough. Speaking to the guy afterwards, like, mate, me and my brother, my twin brother, we drill single leg X all the fucking time.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
he's ready for you.
Fuck's sake! Of all
Not because he's looked you up though, because that's even worse.
And I was just like, of all moves to go and pull on it. She said, mate, when you're doing that, when you're taking that guy down, taking his back and all that type of stuff, I was like, shit, this guy's good. And I was like, so I've gone to the move which you know best of all.
You could have just played.
And I could have just played the normal game in the first place. And
how do you feel about? I wouldn't say studying tape sounds a bit formal for like our level, but just like looking into it. I know I speak to Rich Rubino about this, and he sort of doesn't look anyone up. He doesn't even want to look at them. Doesn't want to see them, and he just thinks, well, I'm just going to run my game on anyone.
Yeah.
Which to be fair, he can.
He can. I think
it goes both ways. I think
it depends on the level of which you're trying to assess this all. If that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If you're going at really high end and have enough time and enough confidence within your own game, I think it's only going to be an attribute to you to see what's going on, right? And so again, we'll use an example here. Obviously, we're working with Shane, obviously, as well as Mark, right? When Mark obviously got qualified to do the English Open, right? And obviously Shane was his first one. We obviously said to him, like, okay, right. Shane,
it was like an absolute bracket sort of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the professionals.
Yeah, they called it a pro league, which is another interesting conversation as well. But yeah, obviously,
it's probably give me some money sort of thing. Yeah,
probably. Yeah, speaking to Mark, I was like, Mark, obviously these are the things that Shane likes. Sorry, Shane, obviously this was before working with you. It's one of those things, I was like, these are the things that he likes type of thing, may want to watch out for this type of stuff. And Mark's like, yeah, I did see all that beforehand. So
he did look.
Mark looked, obviously it could be down to personal preference, it could be down to a mindset thing of like, I'm going in and doing my game. I just think if I was in those person's shoes, and again, I'm not here to discredit them because Rich is fantastic, I'm not saying I'm anywhere near better than him in the slightest bit, I just think it's very useful to see if you're seeing patterns appear which you're aware of what's going on, right? Why is he sweeping me this way? Oh, this is because he likes to transition here, right? I'd rather have that knowledge rather than be completely naive into it and kind of in fresh open water, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It definitely goes both ways because I think almost always I think that's the way to go. If you find out they're Commonwealth champion in judo, it's like you know what your path to victory is and what isn't.
Your ass is getting to that form.
You're sitting down. You're big sit. But then again, there's weird things you can throw judokas off with in stand-up as well, and they're very much they've got a path they like on the feet, and so maybe it's still good to know.
That's what I think the point is. It's good to be aware of it. It doesn't mean you need to game plan completely around it, right? I think the only difference would be is that if it's very obvious, with obviously a lot of these sub-owning competitions come out, you've got a leg locker in front of you, then I would be there drilling all anti-leg lock defense, all this type, well not anti-leg lock, leg lock defense.
You may as well make it your whole camp, just
you might as well
get out of heel hooks.
Yeah, especially if this person's, I don't know, got a 12-week winning streak of heel hooks and everything else, right? That to me is obviously quite obvious, but again, it doesn't take much research to look into it to kind of go, right, this is this guy's game, and then from there, do you have to change your whole style? No, but you need to be aware of it. I think Crocker mentioned about it in the sense of like, can he do berimbonos? No, he's not the best at doing them in the slightest bit. However, he knows what's happening when it's being done to him, and he's like, whoa, hold on here, let's obviously sort this out, and that's where I think it'd be quite useful for people to look into type of thing. But
the only caveat I see is when you get into your head, when you one of my guys at brown belt, the only match I lost at brown belt, I didn't compete a lot, that sounds better than it is, but the only match I lost, I researched the guy like I always do.
I think everyone does as soon as they click that submission on Smooth Comp. Who have I got? Where are they from?
Straight on an AJP and looked him up YouTube as far back as I could. Facebook, I'm full on detective mode. And
what's his third ex-girlfriend's name? How's Natasha doing, mate? Yeah.
I'll text her. Has he got any injuries? But I just found out he was good. Do you know what I mean? He'd been in brown belt a long time, and it got into my head. And I wasn't getting much nerves as much in brown belt as all the other belts.
Yeah.
And for that one, I was like, I didn't go out to lose, but I was like, this guy's good, and whatever happens, he's a good level. And you just don't really want that mental. I want to go out maybe fresh mentally in the sense that I've got a shot. So the very last guy at brown belt, I thought he had done the same thing to absolutely everyone. He pulls guard straight to one bar. big Polish guy, and he's like huge, big hands, and he's like strong like an ox. Pulls straight to armbar.
Yeah.
And I fought him at Bristol Open, and paired to one, and he'd won it in 2019 at brown belt, and this was now we're like 2022 or something, or 2023, and he'd won it back then with the same move and put it all over Facebook. Like, this is how I beat everyone. And then I started looking up his match, and it was always like 10-second submission, armbar from close guard sort of thing. And so I was ready for that.
Yeah.
And he got his grips, and he pulled hard, and I pulled back so hard that he went, "Oh, thanks," and just stood up with like an ankle pick, because I'd overcommitted away from the armbar.
Okay.
And he just bounced straight onto obviously he's got this little 1-2 punch thing, and he's like, the armbar's not there, they pull back too hard. But he'd caught everyone with this armbar, to the point where after my match, a friend of mine, my first ever brown belt match, a guy called Jacob, who's now black belt, shout out to him, in Swindon, I think he's based. He, I said to him in the absolute he had him, because I went home, I took my gold and went home. I said, he's going to do this. And he's like, So
did you get the gold? Did you beat him in the end?
I ended up beating him. I got lucky, but he was all over me to start with, and I very easily could have lost that match. He made a mistake towards the end, I managed to capitalise on something. But very easily he could have just smashed me and got on top, and it would have been, because I looked him up, I overcommitted. But if I hadn't looked him up, would he just cut me straight in the armbar? So I think of it saved me more than the other way, but I can see how it goes the other way, and you can go, that's their strength, and almost, because people with a good move are ready with the predictable defence to to do something with that. But my friend then got caught in that armbar in the absolute, even though I said he's going to do this to you, and the guy went out and did it to him.
Was it in like 10 seconds again straight away?
Yeah, it was early on. He pulled straight to it, and I said, he's going to do this. He did it to me, he does it to absolutely everyone. If it's on, it's on. If not, he wrestles up and does whatever. And even that, he has headphones on, he's trying to get in the zone, he's like, all right. But it happened to him, even though it was going to happen, because it wasn't like, maybe took it as seriously as advice for like, because I'm deep into that like research people thing. But it's...
If you're facing Garry, he's going to be looking up everything on you.
What's scary is when other people, because I'm so into it, like Mark will go, here's my guy, have a look at him. Because I get
he sends you the
and I'll look into stuff, and then I'm like, what do I do with this information? Do I, if he loves whatever a leg lock, do I say don't play the leg lock game with him? And then Mark's in his head and like doesn't want to do it when he could have subbed the guy with it. You never know.
I think, like I said, I think it's just useful to be aware of their preferences. I think that's going to be useful for even if you go back to wartime tactics, right? Oh, they have just a ginormous navy and just overpower all your ports and that type of thing. At least you're aware of what's going on, and so when it does come about, you can expect obviously the outcome for it.
For yourself, but what do you do for other people? I'm not a coach to anyone, do you know what I mean? That feels a bit like...
It's like I said, it's tricky, and I think if people are asking for you, I learned from this recently actually. I do work with other people outside of jiu-jitsu. Obviously, I've got my other nutrition consultancy, which works with like MMA, CrossFit, general people, carrying at Weight Watchers, you name it, type of thing. Shout out Fat Trev. Love Fat Trev. And he had a pull-out from his match. And he was already the underdog for this MMA fight. And his pullout, then obviously the pullout happened. And they said, we've got another guy coming in who's a bit of a vet, has fought on Bellator, has fought on this, he's from Brazil, blah, 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 blah. And I said before he even asked, I said, mate, I think it's just all going against you. Yeah, you've had a really tough fucking fight.
Oh, you gave him a pep talk, nice.
I thought I was doing the right thing with this. And I was like, you've had a tough fight camp, you've had a lot of other stuff.
You're trying to give him the underdog speech.
Yeah, and I was like, right, there's a lot of stuff going on for you here, mate, and this is going to be a bit of a coming out party for him on the promotion and stuff. I can't say too much, otherwise it gives away the person I'm speaking about here, but and I don't think it's going to be the best move for you. I'd rather you come into this, even if you are an underdog, with a better, more fluid fight camp, of better things.
Talked him out doing it. I see what you mean.
Yeah, I talked him out of it. I said, look, you've had a change.
I thought you meant he was fighting anyway, and you're like, this has got no hope.
Well, this is the thing. I was trying to outline it because he had, obviously, the matchup that he had already was like, okay, the guy he's fighting is pretty fucking solid, right? It's not as if like this is like, again, so he was aware of that already, being an underdog in that fight, right? 3 weeks out, the guy's pulled out, right? Which I'm like, all right, fair. The guy's given at least some notice. The alternative, however, was not, again, the most easiest of matchups. As again, a veteran in the sport, a guy obviously who's done major promotions elsewhere, right, which you see on TV and this type of thing. And again, they have no idea on what his styles are. So they've been training for a particular style, and then all of a sudden this guy's completely different and was like a southpaw, right? And it's just like there's a lot more variables to this now, right? And you're already starting in a lower position, and you've had a lot of other family issues go on, or issues outside the camp, obviously, that this causes. This has not been a smooth camp in the slightest bit, and now you've got another variable on this. And I then said to him, if you want my opinion, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? I know this is a big opportunity for you to get on this big promotion and all that type of stuff. However, I want you to at least be like 40-60 rather than like 80-20 right now type thing. Yeah. And it would be more in your favour. He didn't take that advice. Was like, I'm going to head anyway. Absolutely fine. And it then dawned on me, and I said, look, I'm a nutritionist. I'm not a fighter, I'm not a coach, and it shouldn't be my position. And I think the biggest thing is that he didn't ask for my opinion, and I was like, in that instance then, I need to shut up and then do my job, which is if he needs to make a certain weight, we make him get himself a certain weight. Right? Anything else we need to consider, fine, would be there to support him type of thing.
Okay.
Had the news this morning, his new opponent is also pulled out.
Okay.
With 8 days notice. So again, it's a little bit frustrating, but I said to him, mate, whatever you decide, that's it. But I think that's my point being to this long ass fucking story is my left leg's gone numb, Jesus Christ. If people want your opinion on stuff, as a coach, as an individual, as a friend, as a rolling partner, as long as they ask for it, then it's absolutely fine.
I think even if they ask for it, there's still times where it's like,
They've asked
shouldn't I?
They need to be in a position to take responsibility of their actions, Yeah. It's like them saying to people, I don't want anyone to warm me up before the match.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Even though it's not exactly identical context, but I know we've been at competitions before, and you're like, oh, do you want to roll up and everything? And I was actually really fucking sick as a dog that day.
I remember. You went a bit pasty.
Mate, I was horrendous. I did the first match, and I was just basically trying to...
you were standing.
Mate, I was just trying to get points for the club, because there was a big push within the club to do that. And I was like, if I win one match, I'm into the bronzes straight away type thing. So technically it was a default bronze. But got the first match done. I came off, and I was just dead. I was just like nothing. I had a conversation with producer Tom, who was helping run at the show at the time. He messaged me the next day, like, "You okay, dude?" And I'm like, "How are you? You all right?" Like, I spoke to you like for half an hour yesterday. I don't remember that.
Wow.
I was just gone. But that was just anyway.
I think comp runs you down more than anything anyway.
Maybe.
Even if I was cornering a guy that I met back on the Isle of Wight when I go back to see my family, my parents. I go to my original club.
Nice.
And I train, there's a blue belt there, and he said he was doing the Somerset Open, and I know what that involves. He's got to do car ferry, an hour, he's got to get up here 2.5 hours, the petrol, everything involved. He spent hundreds. And he's probably spent over 200 quid. And he's not hoteling it, so he's up there, and I see him there. I told him to message me beforehand, and I see him there, and I was like, oh, mate, I'll corner you. And I was cornering all day. He did all the gi, did really well. I think he gold in the gi, silver in the no gi, I think.
Nice.
And it has that big gap in between, and he just sat around did the no-gi. It's a long day, and at the end he was just like white, and I was like, mate, you need some jelly babies, you need something. I was like, mate, you've been here all day, you've smashed you're in your head and you want to compete, and it's like you haven't eaten all day, you're looking a bit waxy, and like, get dinner before you drive home.
Well, here's a good thought for you. So I decided, obviously, with my type 1 it is sometimes quite tricky, obviously trying to manage all that in the mix of everything. And I ended up deciding, I think, probably about 1.5 years ago, to when I'm doing competition, I'm either doing gi or no gi. Okay. Not doing gi, no gi, absolute, and trying to do the quad gold type thing. Yeah. I just think, for the amount of rolls and adrenaline.
I only do one. I can't do the gap in between.
No, I've had it.
It went the opposite of black belt. The guys that I fought 9 a.m. in the morning had a 10-minute turnaround, and then they had to do no gi, and they were like, no. But it had been structured
for them to get it done.
Brown and black belts, they want to get it done early because they know they're going to go off and coach all day, and the kids. And my second opponent literally had his own kids there, and he had to corner them. He had to corner one of his kids between the gi and the no gi, and then run back over there.
That's class.
And one of the guys, the first guy, the guy that beat me, was like, "Oh, let's do podium first," and he was trying to stall the organisers, like, as much as he can, just to get a bit of a break. Yeah. And it's like the turnaround was so crazy. So that's like the other extreme. Yeah. Doing gi and then no gi, and
I think personally, like, again, a lot of obviously top level athletes would say this as well, in the sense that if they're going to do something in particular, say no-gi competition, that's what they'll obviously put all their eggs in one basket, and they'll keep into that, or gi, or etc. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate it can be different from hobbyists and different level belts and just getting the experience and the mat time type of thing.
Yep.
And I think there's certain competitions out there that do that round robin style, which I think is absolutely perfect for. Grapple Industries obviously is one of them that comes to mind. I really love that tournament. And I think from that point onwards, I was like, especially some of the people who did the gi round robin to begin with, then gone to the no-gi, you could tell they were not 100% at that point. No. They may have been 90, they may have been 80, but you could tell instantly, and a lot of them after was like, you've only just done the no-gi thing. I'm like, yes. They're like, you a no-gi club? I'm like, no, we do gi and no-gi. I just said, like, do you know what, I'm focusing on these 3 or 4 matches, getting my job done, going home, and then that's it.
And they're training all the time, such an edge. I know the elite boys in it. Is it Somerset?
Bridgewater, yeah. That's
they just do the no-gi, and they rock up to the locals, and they just do the no-gi. It's like, it's an advantage, you know. You just do no-gi all day long, every day. My main training is probably gi, so that's all I enter at the moment. But I just started coaching. These Wednesday nights, I'm doing no-gi. So I'm coaching the no-gi, so I'm getting back into. It's just all on muscle memory at the minute from years and years. But I used to prefer no-gi.
Yeah.
So I'm getting back into it. But
nice, man. I know we've got a massive tangent here, as we normally ask about your sort of competition history and obviously what weights you've done and that type of thing.
Sure.
So let's go straight back to the beginning of like white belt, blue belt. Much competition in those days? Or
white belt was rough. I've only done a few. My original coach, Martin Dell, said, I just want you to compete at every belt. Which I think that's pretty standard. I think a lot of people say, just get at least one in every belt, just so you can have a little feel what it's like before I'll promote you to the next one. And he was pretty consistent with that with all the students. So I only did a handful at white belt, my first ever, because it was the Isle of Wight. Like I said, it was car ferries, it was travelling, I think Devon, I think Dorset and Hants we did.
Did you bump into Crockett as the Nuki King?
No, I didn't. I wouldn't have known if I bumped into him back then. But yeah, I remember travelling all that way with a team of people, and my first white belt match was just went out and got ankle locked in seconds. Didn't really know what an ankle lock was. I've been training 8 months. And then I went off to side just distraught, and the guy came over to me and started telling me how to defend an ankle lock in front of my coach. He's like, mate, just give him 10 minutes maybe. But so we did a lot of that because of the travelling and stuff. It was made it worse.
Yeah.
But white belt was a bit rough, and then I didn't get to compete at blue belt, which is like the biggest one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
My coach in London, I said, please don't. He said, how would you feel about getting your purple? I said, please don't do it. I want to compete at blue belt. And then next week he gave me my purple belt. I was like, I really wanted to, at least get 1 or 2 at blue belt.
Yeah.
And then purple belt, I hadn't competed in something like 6 or 7 years or something, since white belt. White belt we were doing interclubs and stuff, and some no-gi, we were mixing with the MMA boys in Southampton, where they let us do leg locks and stuff, and that was all good fun, because our coach let us do like knee bars and stuff, so we had fun with that. And then purple belt was, first one was Bristol Open, 3 rounds, 3 submissions, got destroyed by everyone.
Okay.
And then, because I'm a bit weird and analytical, I literally wrote down everything I did wrong, competition-wise, and I was like, what points did I do wrong? It's all tactical stuff. I consider it like testing well and training well in the club, I was like, I'm not testing well. So like, what can I do better? And every single point that came up in those matches I addressed, and then went out and got gold. I won 2 or 3 matches in the next one at Cheltenham. And so I was happy with that. And it's one of those ones where you compete maybe once at the belt and get destroyed, and it's like, I won't do that again. Or you do it all the time until you can make something happen and actually learn from it. I was like, I've got to go 1 or 2 ways of this. And so that's what I did. But and then brown belt, competed a handful of times. Yeah. That was more like the black belt run. I just wanted to get a bunch under my belt. Yeah. And once at black belt so far. Just once, and we're not talking about it. Okay. No, I'm joking.
So, next question, what was it like? No,
black belt was fun. I mean, out of all, because brown belt felt like more serious, because I was like, I wanted the result, so I could then go, right, if someone gives me a black belt, I'll beat everyone at brown belt, and I felt like I sort of did that. Yeah. One of my guys I beat, that guy, the Polish guy, went on to like double gold British. Like MMA math, it doesn't really work out. I can't say I could have gone and won British because it's different day, different opponents. But Mark was there and he said he made it look pretty easy, beat everyone double gold. I'm like, okay, at least I'm at the level. And then he's black belt. Everyone I beat at brown belt has got to black belt. Yeah. So when I got mine, I was like, fine. I don't feel that imposter syndrome can go down a little bit. But Black belt, first one out. I didn't feel nervous because I did feel, which is opposite how you probably should. I know people take it really seriously, but I didn't want to go out and lose.
Yeah.
But I felt like I'm having a bash, and no one remembers your losses. I just want to get a bunch under my belt. I signed up, and I was on holiday. I wasn't training for 2 or 3 weeks before the comp, and I was like, that's not ideal.
North Somerset, yeah.
Somerset, yeah.
I think I saw you on there. So I was looking to catch up with you until, again, extreme sport of dog walking and rolling my ankle. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
That was one of those ones where I shouldn't have looked up the guy. My first guy was, I think he lost 1 match in his last 20, and it was against Ross Nichols. I'm like, and he was adult, and we all got mixed down to adult.
Yeah.
So I think he was 30. It's not a massive difference, but he was ready, professional MMA guy, and he's ready for 10-minute rounds.
Yeah.
They gave us the 5-minute rounds, which was nice, but still called it adult. So I guess being a local tournament, they can just do what they want.
Yeah.
I was happy. I got 5. I was dreading doing 10-minute rounds, but that was one of the ones I was in my head a little bit because I was like, he's obviously decent. But I basically, when I go out to comp, it's just a little battle with myself psychologically. I want to run my game, what I've been working on in the club that I know works for me, and I basically don't want to bottle it. I've been to comps where I'm like, I'm doing this, and then I get out there, just try something. Oh, I feel like this judo throws on, and just like try it, and it's like, what have I done?
I've done that before. Sorry to check. Literally, I think it was one of my first competitions at blue belt. I actually had an experience before. I didn't realise the grappling industry is the absolute. It's all belts, all submissions and no-gi.
Okay.
So I didn't realise that until about 2 days before, and so I had a kind of experience of going into blue belts because mentally in my head I was like, I'm going to get steamrolled by a competitor at blue belt type of thing. First match I was up 10-4, I think it was. I was on the guy's back before they reset it. Stupid error, don't ever cross your feet, kids. So that was a fucking error I made. And then obviously that torqued my fucking knee. Next match was a guy who's a bit more of a regular competitor. I feel like dominant within the match. I didn't get any points at the time, but again, a very easy. He rolled out from a turtle, kept his legs wide open. I was like a kid in a candy shop, like, oh, let's go and grab a hip, like this type of thing. And then he's armbarred me straight away, belly down. I was like, ugh, typical. But that was my first experience of fighting a blue belt, and I was technically a white belt at the time. Next competition at blue belt, that's your story of like trying something new. Coach in the corner like, yeah, I was like, he's not moving, like he's been really stationary, do something. In my head I was like, oh, I've seen this on Instagram.
So you did something.
And I grabbed both lapels. I'm like, yeah, you see it on Instagram, they just drop to their knees and turn over their shoulder and they just fall on the floor. So what I do, grab that, turn around, drop to my knees, and I'm like, why is he not in front of me? What's going on here? Why is it? Next thing I just see a hook being put in from here, and I'm like, oh fuck, he's about to take my back. I was just like, Jesus Christ, what have I done here type thing. But I think we've all done it at some point.
So to me, a win in competition is just, did I execute the game plan?
Yeah.
That's a win, because I'm fighting against myself, wanting to try dumb stuff that's not in my game.
Yeah.
And so obviously you want to win. I'd be happy to have won those matches at black belt, but I did my game plan. I've been playing a lot of close guard in the gi, and I just went out the second match. I got to my close guard. I did everything I wanted to do. It was 0-0 at the end. It was ref decision, and couldn't get out my close guard. I was threatening stuff. It's a win in so much as I didn't go out and try and judo throw the guy. You know, so like I take it. I've had lots of comps like that. So the psychological aspect of it, of dealing with nerves and going out and just doing what you're supposed to do, is the battle for me, and then everything else is just gravy.
That's good, man. That's interesting to hear.
And you see what works and doesn't work. One of my best matches was at the end, my last match at purple belt against this big lump, and he got some sneaky Ezekiel on me right at the end, but it was back and forth on points, and we both got a bunch of sweeps, and I saw stuff. You know, lapels wrapped around the legs. He was using it for double legs and wrestling up on me, and I never felt anything like it. Like he literally walked me back to the centre of the mat, and I just went, "Whenever you want, take me down." I have no clue what's going on. My hips are locked. I don't know what you're doing. And it's one of those. Was like, in real time, I was like, "I'm going to take this back to the club and have a think about what this is later." But I got 3 different variations of butterfly sweep on him, and that's what I've been working on in the club. So I was like, I take that as my win to know. Some people just want the win or loss, and they need the medals, and they're trying to build almost like a comp career or something. And I'm like, I can go back and at least show, if I'm teaching now, I can go, at least at that level, these butterfly sweeps work. Yeah,
that's interesting. So it's one of those mindsets, especially for white belt, right? New white belt, is that I learned pretty quickly from my original club, which was an MMA club, right? That especially when it comes to open mat, no one's going to give you anything for nothing, right? And so mentally, you obviously walk into the jiu-jitsu environment going, yeah, I want to sub someone. I want to win the match type thing. And even though in a club environment, you really do sort of point systems, right? It is just simple sub, we'll move on to the next round type thing. And it didn't take me long to realize that, hold on, even though we're not doing points, if you're able to sweep this guy, that's a bonus, And if you get pounded for the rest of the fucking match, cool, wicked, no problem, but you got the sweep on a very game person. I think your kind of perspective there on saying, right, okay, match didn't go my way, or it was a stalemate and went to a decision. However, against another level component, like competitor against me, I was able to pull off the things that I've been working on type of thing, and that's like very admirable to say that, right, that's a big win. Do you know what I mean? And then from there, it's like, okay, cool, well, what didn't go so well? Okay, cool, well, we need to work on not getting my legs wrapped up in a lapel and being taken down type thing, or whatever it could be. So,
how do you train in the club? Do you have points in mind when you're sparring all the time?
At the moment, we're doing ADCC systems, so everything.
Well, that point set, that rule set. You have that in mind.
So at the moment, within the classes, in the competition classes that we're doing.
But you're conscious of it. I mean, when sparring at the end, you're like, am I up or down?
Little bit. Depends if I'm getting close to competing myself, I'll start keeping it in mind in the sense that if I'm in side control, I will then move on to a knee on belly to just get more points basically, or cause a nice reaction from it, type of thing.
But you'll know at the end of the round, even if it's a friendly match, like I was up or down.
No, I don't think people would even say it like that. I think it's just next match. But mentally, I've gone into that match kind of going, right, okay, let's see if I can score points on this person. Obviously, again, I think we've got a culture where we want to go for submissions more so than anything else. Like, don't let it, obviously, because as sure as you're aware, mate, there's a lot of discrepancy over how points are being given in different events, right? So I think I saw some dramas, I think it was 2 days ago on Instagram, 2 heavy collar ties from either opponent, ref DQ both of them at an IBJJF event.
Okay.
And I was like, what's going on here? This was no gi, And then the other drama from the world is that I'm sure you probably saw a few people where one of them would pull guard and the other person would like Superman leap to like touch just like a slither of lapel and then go, oh, take down 2 points. And it's just like...
Yeah, that one's weird. It used to be really, really hard to get the points, and then it became, you literally put a finger on the knee and you get 2 points. And then it became, what's on their YouTube now is like whoever initiates. And it's like, what do you call an initiation of a guard pull? Is it the first initial movement? Is it the grip? So Richard's match in the Euros was, I'm biased, I was there, I'm not cornering him, but I was just shouting out times and stuff for him. I'm seeing it firsthand. And the guy sort of sits down, like crouches, and Rich blasts on him. The guy's feet hasn't come up to put a foot on the hip, and no sort of guard pull. No. But he had a grip, and Rich blasts on him and gets to his legs. And I'm like, that's takedown. And it didn't happen like that, like the ref didn't see it that way. And I'm like, so is that a game in the system? The guy's like crouching in a way that he can do his own ankle pick, but if someone shoots on him, I was pulling guard.
Yeah.
That one's always a little bit,
yeah.
There's loads of borderline cases. I love points, by the way. I like those conversations, but maybe we'll get into that. But the sub-only format, that was one of my unpopular jiu-jitsu opinions.
That's right, we'll come back to that.
That was one of my...
let's talk about obviously the different categories then. So and obviously you're sort of same sort of build as me, height-wise, that type of stuff. Obviously we've rolled a few times, which is cool. What's the progression in terms of your weight then? Obviously, some people obviously have different stories and stuff. So where did you start a white belt and where's it sort of...
So white belt, I was already like 25 a white belt, so it's not like I've grown anything in height since I started jiu-jitsu. So it's just been weight fluctuation at the same height, and I've been as low as middle heavy, almost all the time at heavy, and more recently the dreaded super heavy.
In ultras, the dreaded barrel.
That's the dreaded, but that's the double dreaded.
That's the double dreaded. So
yeah, I got friends, maybe an ultra that maybe shouldn't be an ultra, and like you can have good experiences. Everyone sort of slows down a bit, especially at locals. Everyone's a bit slower, but then you get the odd actual athlete at ultra, and it's like, what am I doing here?
I did see someone the other day who competes at the ultra heavy, the white belt, and big guy, did a little bodybuilding back in the day type thing.
Yeah.
And obviously was doing pretty well, obviously, because even with the bodybuilding, it's more obviously weight focused. He's quite athletic in that instance, right, and handled himself. And went to another competition and came up against an ex-rugby league player. And he said that I was being handled as if I was a child all of a sudden. And I said, well, that's the problems of ultras, because you don't know who the hell you're going to get up. And he was taller than him, probably just as heavy as him, and then even more athletic. And it's just like, you just don't know what you're going to do.
There was a guy who stood in front of me at the queue at Somerset who was like blotting out the sun. He was like this. And I'm like, he can't be in super. He can't be. Because I didn't know who I was fighting. I could like visually see their face. And I was like, this guy can't be super, can he? He was massive.
And then is that when I was like, oh, hey Garry, it's Rich.
Yeah, I was thinking if I put on like 3 kilos, I got to fight this guy, sort of thing. I was like, that is a different world.
Yeah.
But athletes in general, I've trained with like maybe 3 actual, proper professional sports people.
Yeah.
It's different. Yeah. Like there's a guy in London who was ex-professional swimmer, and like never seen cardio like it. Just unbelievable pace, just would not stop. There's even a basketball player I've had a few rounds of recently, a tall guy, but then I'm like, oh, you played for a decent level? He's like, yeah, international, he's trying to be modest. I'm like,
oh, is he American?
No. But it's just the level of cardio these guys have.
Yeah.
It's just that go and their mentality as well is slightly different. You don't get many proper professional athletes, especially just hobbyists like us in the club. When you see it, it's like, oh, that's a different world.
Mindset, that's all it is.
And mindset,
Like mindset. They just don't. There just seems to be no stopping them.
No.
Which is just really scary to see. And you get glimmers of it from different people, and sometimes you see people evolve into it, and you're like, that's really interesting.
That's been like a lifelong struggle for me because I was not into basically anything physical. I used to skate back in the day in the skate parks.
Yeah.
So I'm used to injuries and things, but actual athleticism and stuff. Like I'm not a physical person.
No rugby, no football, no nothing like that at all?
Middle school, like literally nothing. Like a gamer kid.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu was like, I got fat. I mean, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was 17. I think I was touching 17 stone. So I like never lifted a weight. So it was all fat. Not in a good place, physically or mentally. Like that link there is, in a rough place. And I was like, I need something, just something physical.
So how did you find it?
My sister's friend at work was like a jiu-jitsu guy, and he was like
Probably talking about it constantly.
Like
all of us.
I didn't know him, but she put me in contact with him. I think I was looking for something and Googling things and whatever, and I was like, that's close to my work. And I went along and just got the bug like day one. And it's one of those things as exercise, you don't even sort of register it's exercise as you're doing it because it's so fun.
Yeah.
I've never had anything that's, you drive into training, and I've never had a single day in 11 years where I'm like, this is a chore. I don't want to be going, but I feel like I need to get the rep in sort of thing.
Yeah.
I've not had one day. And I've been doing like 6 a.m.s of Hibs and like doing like, and I haven't had any sleep with the kids, and it's like I'm still driving there going, yeah, sweet, like this is going to be great.
For it. I think there's been some tough sessions where sometimes you get there and you're like, oh, this isn't going to be fun type of thing. But
the brown belt to black belt run, when I was taking every round very seriously, was stressful a little bit sometimes. Not even before comp sport in general, but it was still never like I'm turning the car around on the way in.
I don't think I've ever had that conversation, which is nice. And I think this is the biggest thing I try and explain to some of the clients that we work with who aren't jiu-jitsu related, right? That there's this stigma that they need to be doing CrossFit, they need to be going to the gym, they need to be running everywhere. They need to
before they come in to get the fitness up.
And that's the expectation.
That's a stressful conversation. And it's like just come and roll.
I'm like, not even like coming into the jiu-jitsu side of things, like it's just like in general day-to-day life, right? And I'm trying to say to them, like, you can get the results that you want with body composition changes, and your hobby could be slacklining for all I care, And the reason why I say this is that because you enjoy this slacklining so fucking much, it's never going to be a chore.
Adherence, adherence to the program.
You're going to be there, you're going to be looking forward to it, you'll actually make time for it, you'll move other plans around for it, I think we all can openly admit that with this sport that you probably have more conversations about saying, oh, there's a seminar coming up. That I don't know, that family gathering, I can't make it, sorry. Right? You probably have more. I think I did the recent one, we got a leg lock boot camp happening, and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be at this sort of horse show with my wife. I was like, I'm not going to make it. And she's like, well, I'm at a leg lock thing, bye.
A leg lock thing.
Yeah. She just looks at me and goes, yeah, fine, you do that.
It's why people, because everything has to be related back to this, once you do have the bug and all your friends have it.
Yep.
When I started working out in the gym, I trained like obviously not a bodybuilder, but I trained like a bodybuilder.
Yep.
That's sort of like, people just call it fluff, like high volume. I enjoy it. So it's like, in 5 years, I've never missed a day at the gym. And it's like, that adherence is what I want more. People go, well, this isn't translating to performance in jiu-jitsu. It's like, not completely, there's carryover, obviously, but it's not like...
It's translating to life, like you being healthy.
I wanted to get bigger, like I was always like, when I was 17 stone, I was all fat. If I'd lost all of that, I would have been like a middleweight. I'm supposed to be skinny, he's got skinny wrists. I'm supposed to be skinny and tall, like my brother and my dad was back in the day. And I just like that bodybuilder stuff, just getting a pump, and like people say, that's useless, but it's like,
mate, you enjoy it.
But I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
And when I was doing it I did it 5 days a week when I was in London for 3 years. I didn't miss a single time. When I tried to do 5x5 strength stuff, 2 weeks in, I'm like, I'm logbooking, I'm chasing numbers. I'm like, I'm not enjoying it.
No, exactly. And I think it's the same thing. Chasing numbers, very similar to sort of chasing belts, chasing medals, this type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to, like I said, you've got to be, the reason why you're doing this type of stuff has to be quite powerful to get you into those positions, especially on the days that aren't as great type of thing. But mate, I think that's the thing, is that, as Rich well finally sort of put, this is a 95% majority hobby sport, right? And the sense that
this is why you've got me on today. It's your filler episode before a proper person.
Don't be silly.
Like William Tackett straight to me. Perfect. No, but it is. I mean, me, Crocker, you've had on.
Yeah.
I'm almost exactly like him. 2 kids, full-time job. This is what most people are that train,
But let's be honest, the majority of people, I have no expectation that Craig Jones is listening to this going, damn, this guy's good.
He's not.
Or not. Oh, mate, I'm sorry to say that. If you want to leave now, you're more than welcome. Or Danaher, to say the least. But
we're having nose beers after this.
Yeah, loads of nose beers. The idea being is, the majority of people listening to this, I just want to try and get a real life perspective from different elements of it. Okay?
Yeah.
You've been around different people,
Yeah.
And it's just trying to sort of explain to them that, okay, your perspective from, I don't know, a white belt to your level is like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. He must be incredible. He must just like be purely dedicated while he's sat in his, I don't know, his like bamboo garden with like, which is like, I don't know, all this type of stuff. I don't know, but it's the case of saying you're just
not far off.
She's just seen him like making all these little patterns in the, is it the sand that they do?
Yeah, I can't remember what that's called. I went to one of
them. And the idea being is that we want to try and get real life stories to the other people and then listen to the mistakes with it, which is, back to the point obviously with the weight, if you don't mind me asking. So, making weight for events, obviously we live in a sport which everything's all weight orientated.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got the absolute, which is a kind of exception to it, and a few other invitational type of things. But how's that been for you? Have you ever struggled making weight? Obviously it's not the question, have you ever not made weight, but did you ever struggle?
I'm always, my sort of settling point, they call it was always bang on heavyweight.
Yeah.
So I should.
That's 91.4,
I should.
94.3.
So I should be walking around at 91 after 92, and then I could just pop a gi on and compete at that weight. I'm very big on, this isn't generalised advice, obviously that'd be your job, but this, for me personally, I like to be at the weight I'm competing at all the time, and then almost eat into the competition, because the training goes up, so I want everything, intake to go up, carbs to go up. Carbs help me sleep, and sleep is fatigue management. That's how you recover.
As you said with kids and stuff, that's probably the biggest thing of all for you in terms of recovery.
Man, that's the one variable I can't do anything about. I'm so meticulous with tracking food and everything. We can get into it, but
sure, your rear naked chokes work on the kids as well, or no?
Yeah. But so super has been. I'm not supposed to be a super heavyweight, but I've been, especially without the sleep with the kids, and the sleep is shocking at the minute. I've been banging in the food as the session. I'm still getting like 5 in a week on no sleep, and I just need the food
to manage it.
So I'm doing the Hewson and 2-pack life or 4-pack life, whatever you said. I don't chase the 6-pack, chase the 4-pack and be an athlete. The Fedor thing. I'm looking at DC. I'm going, no, obviously that's extreme, but the extra belly fat just comes on for me as I'm eating more. And if I try and eat in maintenance, it's okay. And then if I'm doing 6 a week, I'll start struggling. If I try and stay lower, it's a real struggle. And heavyweight I'm going back down to now. I've started dieting back down again. But for me, I just eat clean, whatever that is. I'm tracking absolutely everything. So I've got my protein in check. I track my micronutrients. I'm a bit psycho about it. I track absolutely everything. And then if I'm overeating, maintenance, and I'm putting on weight, good or bad weight, it's obviously carbs is the variable that goes up and down. And for me, I just pack in a load of crap on top of it. So I'm eating giant Reese's bars and stuff. And if I want to go back to maintenance, I just cut that out. So the main diet is always good. Some people go from a good diet for performance, and then they go to McDonald's and they go back up and down. And my diet is just always good food.
Good consistency.
And then I add in crap like this.
It's interesting you say that. So I think what people don't realise is that with the lack of sleep, obviously we talk about lack of performance and stuff like this, but it also auto-regulates your hunger hormones as well. And
carbs, you just want to eat sugar when you wake up. And
you just do all these things, and it's most of the time obviously the most palatable foods that we want. And this is the argument with like the whole sugar debate. no, sugar's bad for you. I'm like, well, no, well, sugar's addictive. I'm like, well, we don't see people going out to buy bags of sugar from Tesco and spooning into their mouth.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's the fact that the foods that are high in sugar, but also high in fat content, which is what most of these things come from. And when we look at the basics of fat, we're looking at 9 calories per gram, right? So take a Reese's Pieces Krispy Kreme donut, right? High fat content, high carb content, and people are like, oh, it's just the sugar. It's like, no, well, they're going to make palatable food, yeah? They're going to be out of business if their food tastes like shit, yeah? And so just because those ingredients are in there doesn't mean that they're the worst thing ever, right? And the post yesterday, I think, on this, about how one cookie's not going to give you diabetes, yeah? Yet an consumption of mango can give you liver problems, right? Because there's too much vitamin A in it, right? But again, put into context, the consumption of the amount of vitamin of the mango you need to get at to have that problem is excessive. So if you're living off mango and purely mango, then you probably want to get your liver checked out. But it's the same thing with the cookies. You've got to potentially be a bit more moderate with that type of thing. But eating a whole pack of cookies in one day isn't going to give you diabetes. It stigmatizes. Don't touch the cookies.
It's surprising how little bad weight like fat you'll put on in a 2-day binge. My girlfriend's just dropped like 3 stone, and she's on keto, but she'll have like diet breaks. She used to Isle of Wight Festival, and it's psychologically like, I'm having 4 days of eating what I want. It's like, you can't put any weight on in 4 days, not really. I'm like, your maintenance is here, you're gonna eat a little bit more. Like, if you put on a pound, like half of that's gonna be what weight?
Which is what I try to explain to a lot of the day before athletes when they're weighing in, and I try and use that as an example to other people who aren't necessarily in that position, who are doing day before weigh-ins. I said, if we can manipulate someone by up to 8 to 10 kilograms in the space of 24 hours, right?
It's all water.
Like, majority of it's water, some of it's different food content in terms of like how it's going to be within the digestive system, glucose reduction, all this type of stuff, right? And I try and say that, look, if we're doing that with 10 kilograms, your 1 kilogram spike that you've had one day, is nothing. It's not body fat.
No.
It's going to be very hard for it. And it's a scary thing I say to people when they are severely overweight, for them to even maintain that level of body composition, they're going to have to be eating so much consistently all the time, like 4k calories every single day, and if anybody's obviously maybe on the smaller side and trying to put on weight type of thing, I can vouch for them. It's very, very hard being consistent on 4 to 5k calories every single day and not be bored of force feeding yourself type thing. So
me and my girlfriend are we've both got naturally high appetites. We just, once we've started eating, that's it, we can't stop. And low maintenance kind of level, that whole neat thing, we don't naturally move much. We both do kind of sedentary like jobs and whatnot. I just work in an office all day, 9 hours a day. This is the only time I move my body, is jiu-jitsu. I try and go on walks and things, but naturally you'd be probably shocked if we had a consultation like what my maintenance actually is, because I track it and average it all out, and I've been doing it for so long. I can tell you what my maintenance is at different weights, and it's not high.
It wouldn't surprise me. Again, people would expect me to be sort of, I don't know, running marathons every day, eating and shitting avocados galore and all this type of stuff, being a nutritionist, but majority of my job is sat behind a desk on a laptop, going to see...
I do this 5 days a week. If I told you now I eat 3,000 calories a day, I'd bang on weight. I'd pack on weight.
100%. So it's the same thing. Like for me, I try and keep an eye on my movement, my step count, getting the dog walks in, that type of thing, which is obviously useful for the dog as well. And then I try and get the jiu-jitsu sessions in, obviously appropriately, and a few obviously sort of weight sessions, but it's all depending on the ankle at the moment. But perfect world for me would be 5 jiu-jitsu sessions a week, potentially one of those being maybe a bonus open mat somewhere, and it would be sort of 2 S&C sessions and then maybe a cardio session in there. And that to me is like a perfect week. Now, how often do I get that perfect week? Very rarely. Right, because something will come up. We've got to go to a podcast somewhere. I've got an athlete to make weight with or something like that. It's all good. You're making me fat. How dare you? And again, it's that element of activity that's needed for it. And again, the amount of muscle mass that I have. I think that's one of the biggest reality checks for a lot of people, right? Is when they do these calculators, right? And they're like, well, this calculator says I need to maintain my weight at 3,000, 4,000 calories. I'm like, that's based on someone having like 90 kilograms of worth of pure muscle mass, right? And even then, that might be on the slightly low side, And they're like, well, yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm sorry to break it to you, mate, but you're probably about 60 kilograms of lean muscle mass, I'm like, well, it's not the point. I'm like, well, Mark can have it. I'm like, yeah, but Mark has more muscle mass than you. Like, how much more times I've got to repeat this sort of same phrase? And then you can then start to balance things out with stuff. But unfortunately, the society we live in today is that, it's getting a bit tin hatty in that sense, is that we are getting more and more sedentary, and that's it. Like Uber Eats, Ubers, like go and get an electric scooter rather than walking somewhere.
I see that a lot now.
Yeah,
I see that a lot.
everything. Like you can pretty much, if you needed anything to do with your phone, right?
Yeah.
You could sit in your house and not move for 2 weeks at a time, realistically.
And I do.
Yeah, other than take a shit maybe, that's it. So with the weight loss then obviously that you've done previously, obviously what did you do? Was it just again calories and macros or?
Yeah, I got into the gym when I was working in Shepperton Studios in London, and we had a little gym on site. And so every lunchtime, my friend got me into it. He used to work in a gym, so I got that perfect. Like he showed me around the gym thing, showed me everything. And like jiu-jitsu, I thought early on, for whatever reason, I'm like, I know this is a lifelong thing, so I'm not rushing it. I went a bit overboard, but I literally for like 2 weeks, I was literally just going through the motions of learning machines, learning how to do, checking my form. I was filming my form and stuff like that before I even put any weight on the bar, sort of thing. Well, a little bit, but I wasn't trying to test my warm at max week 1.
Yeah.
But so I had a good little entry to it, and I wasn't looking at diet at all. And that's how I got into the nutrition side of things, because once you max out your newbie gains, I started looking at like,
why am I not getting any bigger?
How do I actually do this? And I was like watching like who's that guy, Callum von Moga videos on YouTube, and I'm like,
have you seen what's happened to him in the last few years?
I haven't followed it closely. I saw the 2 injuries back to back, and then he went a bit loopy.
Loopy, and he keeps on trying to do these videos like, I'm coming back now and everything.
Some people need their workouts, and if you bite your legs and you can't get your workouts in.
Well, this is the thing I've said to people before, sorry for a bit of a tangent on this, his knee just fucking buckled on itself because of his weight. It wasn't
really?
Yeah, and it was based on the angle that he was leaning over. So I think it was like a rock climbing thing, but his knee just popped out the socket, right? And it's like, that's not due to someone trying to talk the knee off or something like this. That's just his body weight on his own muscle and ligaments, and the ligaments just going, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. And it's this whole argument of like, you're seeing, again, was it Joey Aesthetic? I think it was one of the other bodybuilders died recently. I think
the Alien Gains chest guy. A lot of people are attributing it to all sorts of different things, but his coach for his last show saying he was on minimal stuff recently, and he's basically TRT, and before that he's open about doing loads of stuff. People want to say it's that straight away, but maybe not.
Maybe
I think blood pressure is probably involved for his blood pressure. It's not good, but
it's just too many people within that world who are just taking off and just gone all of a sudden.
I follow it. I follow the whole bodybuilding world and the influencer guys. Was it John? What's his name? That older boy with that dog shit training. That guy. I think he came up with it. John something. It was him. I follow all the guys. Sean Roden, all the guys that have just died.
Rich Piana,
and if you watch Nick Strength from Power, like the last couple of years, it's just like every week it's like rest in peace episode for someone. I'm like, Jesus.
It just puts into perspective for it. But sorry, slight tangent with that. So you're doing obviously some of the weightlifting and that type of thing, obviously.
Yeah, so I as soon as you start putting any lean mass on, you can just drop fat so easy. And I was doing intermittent fasting, and I was doing weights, and then I was banging a load of HIIT cardio. And so I wasn't eating until like 2 p.m.
Okay. Completely
deplete absolutely, it's not ideal, but depleting absolutely everything with the weights, and then doing cardio, and I just absolutely shredded fat like I've never done in my life before. And
come by Garry's program.
It wasn't ideal. I didn't feel that good.
A quick word about one of our sponsors, Grapplers Soap. The team wanted to find, the best possible defense against skin infections, which normally we get from each other or off the mass. This, in turn, led Dan and the team into researching more about soaps and essential oils, which turns out has been used for thousands of years, actually, as a natural defense against infection during the plague. Slightly twisted story here, but grave robbers in England knew of the power of essential oils and smothered themselves in it before exhuming and stealing corpses. Useless fact of the day for you there. But Dan and the team had tried several soaps before, but none of them just simply wowed them. So he started to make his own. Months more research, trial and error led to finally this golden nugget, Grapplers Soap, which you'll be pleased to know the recipe is CPR registered and approved by pharmacists. The use of a specific method to lock in the amazing natural smell, no cheap fragrances used here, which means the soap and use smell great and stand the best chance of staying healthy. Although the soap was developed for grapplers alike, it is now widely being used by non-grapplers, and Dan is always delighted to hear from customers about how it's cleared up dry and itchy skin, or relieved eczema, or just simply made you feel awesome. The smell alone has been a massive hit with men and women alike. So enough waffle for now. Go and get yourself some now at www.mrbassets.com, or go check out their Instagram page for some very funny memes at Grapplers Soap. Thank you, guys.
I dropped a lot of weight, and I was down to about 85 kilos, just no fat on me, and it's not sustainable. So, I had to start looking at the nutrition after that, and didn't know even to eat protein before that. And it was just all, my body was like, what's a weight? And just naturally, just like, oh, it's stimulus, I'll start growing. But since then, just absolutely obsessed with the nutrition side of it and the tracking side of it. I'm like that anyway, like I said, analytical. So it's just a video game to me. MyFitnessPal is a video game to me. I just track my numbers.
Have you completed it yet?
I have completed. Do you know what? When it pops up saying, give so-and-so a bump, they've done a month straight, I think I've got like 1,400 days or so. It works out as like 4 years straight without missing a day. And I'm thinking, man, that's on holidays, that's I've not missed a day.
Oh,
and
that's wicked.
When you get a streak like that, it's stressful. You don't want to break your streak. But
I know I was being at university, and we had to get paired up with different people, and it was like, oh, you're going to do an assessment on someone's food diary? And I literally just laughed, and they said, why are you laughing? I said, whoever gets me has got 3 years worth of food diary to look through. Literally every day, having
do you find
everything
you track every day, like all of that, doing it without, I could drop it now and I'd know what's happening without tracking, because you just internalize it.
So one of the things that we kind of promote with this, and it depends on the individual, right, and obviously on what they're doing. If we've got hobbyists or if we've got athletes, obviously it's a different discussion altogether. But even with the athletes, this is quite useful when they do have downtime, because they will, right? They'll have a holiday somewhere, something like this. And it's trying to encourage them to not be solely reliant on stabilizers, basically, is the way I describe it. Yeah.
Stabilizers, what being?
In terms of the use of MyFitnessPal, right?
Okay.
If MyFitnessPal wasn't here, how would you be able to figure out the information? You can look and read the back of the label. Yeah. Do you need to be mentally calculating everything? No, especially if we then try and keep the habits that we typically do day to day, right? So a common one would be, don't have breakfast, let's just say, for whatever reason. Disable the arguments of like, well, what about if I'm training first in the morning? Just keep it nice and simple. You're not training, just normal day-to-day life. You don't have breakfast, right? Yet when we go on holiday to an inclusive, everyone just starts smashing in breakfast.
You paid for it, come on.
Yeah, and I'm like, but are you hungry for this type of thing? No, and that's when it's kind of like, right, the things that we've learned from this, why are we having Nutella pancakes for breakfast when you've been eating bacon and eggs every morning? Yeah, like, try and replicate what your normal habits are, rather than mentally put in your head that, oh my God, if I don't eat what I'm going to get from my all-inclusive type thing.
I repeat eat so much I can just do it blind now.
Yeah.
I mean, literally every day.
And so by then it gives you a bit of confidence. Yes, there'll be some variance, right? Bacon medallions versus streaky bacon is obviously going to be hard. What type of cheese is it, or what eggs are they, etc.
I don't go, psycho about,
No, and it's just then, it's trying to give them confidence to kind of say, right, you've been doing this already. I don't want you to be using MyFitnessPal, yeah? And then what we're going to do is we're going to use other metrics, obviously, to try and mitigate, obviously, how well your success is, right? So it might be the case of, like, my rule of thumb with this is the fact if you have 3 core metrics, you can do a lot with that. And that's i.e. having understanding of activity, which I normally refer to as step count, a bit different with JITs, but again, it's still quite useful outside of JITs as well. Your daily weight measurements, right? And I did say daily for people maybe listening to this, really useful, okay? And then,
I do daily. Yeah. I just average it out.
You can start to see trends. That's the cool thing about it. And then an idea on the food log, right? If you have those 3 key metrics and you can't have access to one of them, let's say you can't weigh yourself, yeah? Then as long as your activity is roughly kept the same, right? And your calorie intake is kept roughly the same, right? You should still be getting the same sort of trend of what you've been doing the previous 2 weeks, yeah? Likewise, let's say if you don't have access to MyFitnessPal, right? You're keeping, let's say you're doing 10K steps, yeah? I don't know, maybe aspirational for you, but doing 10K steps each day, you're weighing yourself each day. If your weight starts trending upwards, what would that suggest to you?
Reese's bars.
Reese's bars, yeah. If your weight's starting to stay the same, cool, fantastic. If your weight's going down then, yeah, it then gives you kind of a rough indicator of what's going on. Yeah. And so it's the kind of, again, the same synopsis that I give to people in terms of, oh, I don't know how to track this, yeah. I'd be very doubtful that all your progress is going to be pinned on one meal out on a Saturday night, and you've just fucked it for that whole thing. Normally it's an accumulation of, well, I had 10 beers with it, and then I had a meal afterwards, and I had a dessert, and then I had a cake when I got home. It's normally a collection of it. It's never just one meal. And so I say to my clients all the time, jokingly, I'm not holding a virtual gun to your head, right, or saying you must have every calorie counted for. Yeah, and then it's just getting them confidence in building that and trying to learn it through maintaining their weight for a period of time. So we normally do it for like 4 or 6 weeks and say to them, look, you haven't used MyFitnessPal. Yeah, you've maintained your weight, yeah, you've enjoyed all the foods that you've consumed, right, you haven't starved yourself or anything like that, or missed out, or been good or bad type thing, you've included different food groups in there, you've been on holiday, nice to say that you've changed your habits now to suit your lifestyle. So, and on the build up to that, we'll have conversations and say to them, right, a bit of it is, again, this is more than just calories and macros, sometimes a lot of psychological sort of talk in here. It's like, the food groups that you're consuming right now, is there anything you're purposely keeping out, right? And I'll say to them, well, why are we keeping the chocolate bars out? I can't control myself around them. No bullshit, you can control yourself around them. Yeah, there's some that you might enjoy more than others, which is understandable, right? But if you're glorifying them into this, what happens when I'm not in the scene anymore? You're just going to binge on them all of a sudden, right? So I've been known for saying this to people, right? The chocolate bars that you enjoy, I want you to have one every single fucking day.
Oh man, I've cut weight eating ice cream every night.
Yeah.
But I literally have. That's probably not. What's that?
I thought you had like a tub of ice cream behind you for a second. I was like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, where the fuck is that
cutting, nutrition podcast,
But that's the point, is that it normalised the food group a bit more, in a sense of it, like, I can't have this is really bad, this is awful, that type of thing. So it just makes it a bit more...
Is it individual? Like, the only reason I track every day, and I'm meticulous about it, my weight hasn't changed in about a year. I mean, it's gone up and down, you know, within a range of 3 kilos, but I'm pretty much the same, and I've been super heavyweight probably a year. I track every day so that, because obviously the mental health aspect is part of it.
Yep.
The diet's so linked into everything with the physical health. It literally anything that happens, if my back feels tight for like a couple of weeks, you know, if I'm, you know, mentally, if it's a struggle, literally anything, I can just go back to my log on my fitness pal and go, what's my diet been like the last 4 weeks? Yeah. And if there's any difference, if it's double the sugar I usually eat, I can be like, maybe that's some inflammation.
Possibly.
Maybe you know.
If the information is useful, I think in a perfect world, if we can get into a system which would be able to understand our food intake without the struggles of having to log everything, because there's other sides of the coin where people believe obviously it's obsessive, right? And
I've heard that. I mean, but I am obsessive by nature.
Yeah, and
my argument's always like, if I'm going to obsess, I obsess about my health. And in the gym and jiu-jitsu, it's like, I could be obsessing about other things.
It's the same sort of argument which we get from like Whoop, for example. Oh, I'm at 30% recovery at the moment. Right. Should I be training today? Right? I've had it before. I felt absolutely fine. I think 2 days before the North Somerset Open, my recovery was going down. I'm like, I've done fuck all for the last 2 days. How the fuck is my recovery going down type thing? Wow. Yeah? And I'm like, I feel fine.
How accurate is it?
Again, it's...
So I've done the sleep ones, that it sort of tries to tell you what your sleep's like by having your phone next to your bed, and I'm like...
It's interesting. So my sleep score pretty decent. Don't be jealous. It's like 100% most days.
Don't tell me. What is 100%? Is that 8 hours straight or?
Don't know. It's got different metrics. So my REM sleep's good and stuff like that. But again,
what's REM sleep? What was that? About 3 years ago, I used to get that. What's a dream? Yeah.
What's a dream?
The dream is to get more REM sleep.
The recovery is kind of based on where your variable heart rate is, or HRV.
Okay.
Heart rate variability, sorry. So it looks at that and how that fluctuates. So the fact is, if your heart rate variability starts to drop, you can kind of pick up when people are getting sick, or menstrual cycles are supposed to come in, that type of stuff. So it works off that. So it works off a lot of different metrics. The concern I have with Whoop at the moment is that they have a reader off the wrist, right? There's another company called Oura. Ever heard of them? Oura rings. So they track off your finger pulse, right? Which they say scientifically they say is more superior than the wrist.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, cool. Now Whoop have obviously brought out this brand where they've got all these clothes where you can get Whoop pants, sports bra, armbar. Like you've seen Rich's one, I'm thinking you may have seen that with his Adidas gig. So that's useful for the jiu-jitsu environment. So I'm having to switch over to something like My Zone or like Polar or something like this, so I can monitor all in one there. But my argument being is that if the wrist is less accurate than the finger, if I've got a pair of Whoop boxes on, is my ass cheek going to be more accurate than my finger type thing?
Right.
So I'm a little bit like, a bit sceptical. But from what I've seen...
But better than nothing.
It's better than nothing. It's better good understanding. It's the same argument I say of like faulty scales, right? If you've got a set of scales which is 2 kg heavier, right?
But consistently 2 kg heavier, you can still make progress either way. I try to tell my girlfriend this every day. Every day. She keeps getting the 4 kg dumbbell. I put it on there every day, checking it. I'm like, it's the same every day, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, look, the 4 kg dumbbell hasn't changed shape either.
Yeah. I'm still trying to get over the thing of weighing every day and then doing the averaging out. And on my fitness pal, you see the spiky line, and I'm like, let's all trending down.
Yep.
But if you get, she'll literally still compare one day to the next. I'm like,
pointless.
that's a low day and that's a high day, even though this one's after this one, that's not necessarily bad.
An easy task I always tell people, if it's weight loss they're looking after, look at where you were 7 days before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for her, it's like 3 months before, and it's just like, boom.
Oh, there we go. It makes it, you zoom out from the individual type of thing. It's like having,
hard.
having one bad day of sparring in the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you zoom out and go, actually, hold on, your progression
I'd quit. I'd quit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those type of things.
So yeah, super heavyweight is where we were.
Keep on going tangents on this, don't we? Super heavyweight we were. So we've obviously gone from there. So was there any struggles? Obviously, you mentioned that you eat up into competitions, which I'm a big advocate for, right? Which is
with the mat side weigh-ins and everything.
Yep.
And the water fluctuations and everything. I'm always a couple of kilos under what I should be. I think I weighed in at like 97 in the gi for super heavyweight, or 98 or something. Whatever, it's 2 kilos, 4 kilos, our level, who cares? But yeah, just I want to eat. Lots of people go the other way. I think even for slow, steady diets going down, like I was saying, I think it is what it is. You're depleting yourself. You're getting slightly less than you need as your training goes up, and you need even more recovery.
So the way I look at it is that if you had an 8-week camp, let's say, obviously to go to London Fall, which has been announced recently, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an 8-week camp for that's in October time, I think, so it might be a bit longer. Your training should not be peaking at week 1 of that camp.
No.
Right? It's going to gradually build up and up and up and up and up. You may even have a deload in there if actually you've got time within enough time frame for it, right? And the idea being is that in terms of fat loss reduction, your best time is going to be right at the beginning of it because training intensity is going to be lower. Now, it's not for me to say at that point you should crash your calories, go sub 1,000, all this type of jazz, yeah? What I am trying to get at here is actually that's going to be the best phase of fat loss.
Make a hole and then sort of eat up into it. Okay, so it's similar to what I'm already sort of doing.
And then maintaining that sort of middle ground for a little bit and seeing obviously where you are. If you've got to make weight on the same day, there's things that you can do. So you can generally manipulate the average person's weight by 3 to 4 kg for same day weighing without under fueling, which is cool. And that's just carb fat switch, fiber reduction, water loading, that type of stuff. So you can do a lot there to get that on weight and still be fueled properly. So you can have that distinctive advantage. It depends, like I said, on the level of the competition, right? Yeah. If you're a white belt hobbyist, go in for the first competition, eat up into the next category, right? That should just simply be the rule.
If you're mid.
Yeah. I'd say just eat up into the category.
Don't put on 10 kg.
No, I wouldn't do that intentionally. Like, there may be one exception to that, which may be the ultra. If you're like on the verge of ultra, I would probably advise you just to drop weight, right? Especially if you're like 5'2", like drop weight to get into the better category for that and work the way down. So some exceptions to the rules, but it depends, like I said, on the level of the competitiveness. If you're going to Worlds, right, I would probably suggest that you want to be slightly above the weight category. Okay, so you can dip a little bit without a detriment to your performance, right? And you can do trial runs of this as well, right? And then you can obviously refuel on the day, right? Because even though we're talking about a kilo advantage, 2 kg advantage, a little bit thing, you're talking percentile differences in terms of wins or losses, if that makes sense. I'm sure obviously you experienced this at the black belt sort of level in the sense that it's not, oh, you didn't know how to break someone's close guard properly, or know what an arm bar is, right? It's the case of, oh, he's grabbed the lapel at a slightly different angle, or he's got, I don't know, he's got the lever of my hand rather than just my wrist type thing. And now those very minute details have made or break the match, if that makes sense. I appreciate some outliers to that type of thing, but it's the same thing when it comes to sort of weight management for these bigger competitions. If we can get an extra percentage on top of that, then all of a sudden you could be ahead again, even further type of thing. Does that make sense?
It does.
For more local competitions, more, let's say, less competitive type of thing, everyone wants to do well. Eating up into them is probably most appropriate for people.
There's a weird thing with the locals because you get people at the locals that are then professionals within the sport. And then it's people have started talking about this a little bit recently, but you do get, I mean, like I said, my guy comes to Bristol Open and then double goes British. I know the British isn't, the world's, but
is it not? Everyone in the UK thinks.
It was like Crocker talked about his friend Josh, the sort of he sees him at the Forces comp and then he wins adult brown belt at Euros, and it's like, so people can sort of just go to anything they want, and it's mixed, which is fine. But we talk about locals a lot, like you should train differently for them. Maybe the structure of how you weight cut for it is different, but then it's like you can still run into like absolute killers as well.
You can do, and I think this is interesting. So I know obviously we talked briefly about Mark and Shane, obviously on their pro division. Right, it was labelled as a pro division, and I think there's an element to it which I can see happening, that there'll be a pro jiu-jitsu level, right? Which I think has the opportunity actually to have some really good sort of credentials around it, to kind of say that, again, I'm having conversations today about steroid use within within jiu-jitsu and stuff like this, and how we're going to mitigate it and stuff like this, and one suggestion that came up is, for example, MMA and boxers, for example, need to do head scans, MRI scans, every single year, right? And so then pro jiu-jitsu athletes, let's say, right, need to do random drug tests once a year, right? Okay. And it's the responsibility of the athlete to get it done, right? Pro boxers, MMA guys, they got to pay for it. It's not the boxing commission I'm going to pay for it. Yeah. So that then obviously they can be tested properly, and it keeps it synonymous across the whole board type stuff. But another sort of tangent there, sorry. But I think it could be useful for the local competitions to be able to sort of say, right, you're registered as a pro, right? You can't drop into this, because technically, other than potentially like a warm-up match before a big thing type of stuff, I wouldn't want to risk it as a pro athlete to potentially, I don't know, get a freak injury from a spazzy blue belt.
There are people that are like, I could be everywhere just for the reps.
Yeah.
You know, there are some people like that, just for the experience.
Yeah, and I'm like, if
you see like UFC fighters going and do local like.
Yeah, you do. And the thing is,
Nagas and stuff, and like, I could be doing Naga or something like that, and you're like.
Imagine that. I think that's a joke. I think it was on the real.
He's a white belt, isn't he?
He is technically.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you do technically be a blue belt. He's a pro MMA guy.
Right, you'd have to go in it.
You'd have to go in.
Is it pro MMA as well as judo black belt now? It's pro MMA as well.
No.
Depending on the comp.
Yeah, depending on the comp. I was reading the Naga rules yesterday, and I was like, "What the fuck? You can weigh in the day before for Naga?"
Really?
Yeah. I was like, "This is it's grappling. I appreciate that." But I was like, "What the fuck? You can go and weigh in the day before, and it's like, and like just take pure advantage of it." I was like, "Jesus Christ, that was funny." So yeah,
especially if you're used to doing that. If you're an MMA
I've got a few clients who want to do it, so I'm like, "Guess what, guys? We've got some big weight cuts to be doing." Which should be fun. So walking in with some monsters for that one. What was my point? I forgot what I was going to mention there. Oh, the
pro divisions,
pro divisions and athletes jumping in. Like, I possibly think that one, they're doing it because they either passed their UFC time, right? Obviously, we heard the news that GSP is going to be on a grappling show soon. Which is going to be really cool. So obviously, less sort of impact on them. It may be to draw more invites on this. So I don't know if you remember, probably about a year or so ago, Conor McGregor was put in for the Grapplers Industries in Dublin.
I think I heard rumblings of it.
Yeah. And then everyone started signing up, like, I'm fucking
I heard that. Yeah, I heard that.
And then he dropped out 2 days before or something like that.
I think it's like Mark Zuckerberg. I know he's not the level, but as a name, had to maybe register as a different name. I don't know how you're even allowed to do that, but otherwise
people
would be going
on the day that he had like a hoodie on, like half
really?
a mask and everything else, so people wouldn't see him. Like, imagine that unveiling.
He's looking
like,
big now, right?
I knew we have Mark Zuckerberg. He just comes out fucking like that.
I saw a picture of him yesterday, looking quite.
Yeah, he was showing Izzy and Volk, wasn't he?
He's looking a bit juicy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, mate. He was. It's not as if he's not got the funding to do everything either. But,
no.
So yeah, I think that obviously sometimes it's to draw more attention to the competition.
I'm in two minds about it, because I quite like the fact that jiu-jitsu everyone mixes in one sense. You can just run into one of my guys was scheduled my second fight at black belt. He's technically got a win over Adam Virginski because it was a walkover. Adam didn't show up to some smaller event years ago, and so technically he's got this win over. But it's like, he could have had a match with him, and it's like quite cool that the pros kind of mix sometimes, but then if you get it completely separate, it's like, does it diminish your win?
Yeah.
You're like, I won, but it wasn't the pro leagues, you know?
No, you said that. That's interesting, because one of our guys from our club, Chimp, went to Grapplers Industries in London. The first person he had was Ross Nichols.
Yeah.
And did he win against Ross Nichols? I don't think so. I think he lost on points, but he didn't get subs. Right. And so he's a blue belt. Right.
Wow, okay.
And so, again, he's recently been promoted to purple. Obviously, he's a really, really good guy and stuff like that. But it gave him the opportunity, obviously, to, again, like, just roll with someone and obviously he had a good experience for him to kind of say, look, I need to eliminate who this person is in front of me, because I know who they are, I may have watched an instruction, all this type of stuff, and just go and play jiu-jitsu with them type of thing. But I don't know, it's
good
hard.
In one way. I even struggle with the Masters divisions.
Yeah.
I know it's a pure ego thing, because I've only just slipped it. I'm not like Masters 6 or whatever. But even if you get the Masters wins, it's like, yeah, but it's Masters, and it's not like getting a win at adult. And so I always feel like, should I just go in adult? And like,
I don't understand people sometimes who will hold in their Masters division and just refuse to budge. I'm like,
not go up to what their actual...
To even go down, right? Let's say they've got one person in a division, right? I know some people who are happy, this is probably an unpopular opinion, I don't like people who sit in like Masters 2, right? in their one-person division, there's only 2 of them. Like they only have 1 match each. They could go on to adult, right, and have a nice little gauntlet to go through.
But because the brown and the black belt takes so long to get there for most average kind of people
Yeah,
like me.
most of them are going to be in the masters.
Most people are older, so I've seen it go the other way. At purple belt, we were all masters, but we all put ourselves down at adult, so we get more matches, and then we're all like in our mid-30s going, what are we doing? We've just given ourselves extra minutes. You know?
But I think it's more to do with the lower belts, mate, and that's what bugs me a little bit. I'm like, right, you're in a position where you're 35, you're a blue belt, and you're medium heavy, right, let's say, and you've got 1 person in your category because it's just super fucking busy, right? And it's super quiet, right?
I always leave that thing ticked on, just like mix me about anywhere you want.
Yeah, I'm happy. I don't really care. Like, I think it's the same with the absolute stuff. Like, I don't fear it because at the end of the day, if I am an underdog, it's no problem.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
31.
So, like I said, I dodge between Masters 1 and adult all the time. Like, just based on what's available.
It's just a black belt. It's literally 5 minute to 10 minute. It's like a bit of a swing, you know, physically. I mean, I was in Masters 2, so I was 5, and when it said it was adult and I didn't read the times, I was fuming. I was like, that's doubled the match length. That's you have to train differently for that.
That's like nearly 80cc level.
I had 1 10-minute match with Hibbs once in no gi because he needed it for something, and I was 6-minute mark. I was looking at the clock like, this isn't doable.
This is why he's getting crossface at the same time.
Yeah. I just see the clock.
Yeah, love it. I don't think as much, mate. We've been chatting for quite some time here, so I might have just chucking over some other stuff. It's been a good little chat so far. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Japan bit? You mentioned you stayed over there, didn't you?
Jiu-jitsu wise, there's not that much. I just went out there traveling at like 27, and I was like white belt.
Yeah.
And training was different, but it was good. It was very expensive.
Yeah.
But they had a whole system of like, leave your gi there, they wash your gi, have it out ready for you when you get back.
It's like a Premier London gym. That
that's why it was so expensive. I like at the end of the session, everyone got a mop and did like 1 line each. It was very like, it got cleaned instantly. They have that system where the kids clean their own schools and stuff like that, so they've got the discipline built in.
Wow.
It was good. It wasn't, I thought they're trying to cling on to like the traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu and be a bit proud about it and not, they had like Brazilian flags on the wall and they're like, just bang into it. So
interesting.
That was cool. Obviously everyone was a little bit smaller, and the only thing that bugged me is they would always pair me up with the foreigners. The big Swedish bloke, they were like, oh, Garry, go with him. I was like, I want to train with the locals, you know.
But is that Alexander Gustafsson?
Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
Very technical, obviously, because they were small in stature. A lot of them.
A few people said that. Matt from Scramble said about the same thing, about how you'd come across some judokas who were fucking shit hot with,
and they were bigger as well.
Yeah.
The judo guys are always bigger in
Japan. And then you'd come across obviously some of the jiu-jitsu guys who were smaller but very technical in terms of where.
Yeah, the guards, crazy guards.
Yeah, so all makes sense there, which is cool.
That was fun.
Right, obviously, a couple of questions that came through, mate. Is can you divulge the secret black belt handshake now you've got the black belt?
It's all with the feet.
All with the feet?
All with the feet.
Interlocking.
I like a slap and bump from open guard. yeah. I did it to someone the other day. They're like, what's he doing? Yeah.
I love that. Next question I had for you was, what is an unpopular jiu-jitsu opinion that you have then? So you actually had a list.
I told you when I saw you do this at Grapple Fest, I was like, I don't think I've got any opinion that's not probably, I don't know about unpopular, is maybe unfair, but just probably against the average opinion.
Go for it. Get the phone out if you want. It's all good.
Mate, I started writing these down. I'm gonna have to rattle these off, and you're gonna have to pick what you want out of this.
That's fine.
Where is it?
Crack on.
Number 1, the points format is better than sub only.
Ooh.
Let's go!
Oh, that's a big one.
Originally, I was being a little bit more. I just said that can be as exciting as sub only, but I watch points more than sub only.
Okay, let me break this down a bit further.
Go for it.
With the sub only,
I'll save the rest. We'll be here all day.
That's all right. Sub only then. I would agree if it then comes to a draw at the end of it.
Which it's gonna. People are good. They cut each other down.
No, there's some onlys where it gives a distinctive winner. So you take Grapple Fest rule set, there's always a winner. There's never a draw.
Yeah. How do they decide the winners? Is it refs?
They've got a couple of refs, and they have obviously a point system which they discuss in terms of like we want sub attempts.
Points.
They say sub attempts, and
well, this is the thing. The IBJJF point system is. There's going to be borderline cases like we were talking about, takedowns versus guard pulls, who initiated. But it's laid out, at least we can all see it. Ref's decision, like my match, I didn't agree with my ref's decision going against me. Obviously, I'm biased. But when you have that conversation, it's subjective. And the ref sees it different to me, and my guy sees it differently, the opponent, I mean. And because there's no objective criteria, you can't go point at a rule and go, no, I won. If it's a point system that's laid out for you, you can say if you won or not. Polaris used to do draws, right?
Yeah.
And they realised you can't build the next card if everyone drew the time before. We need winners. This guy beat this guy, and now these two guys are winners, and now they're against each other. You build the hype.
Yeah.
And so they made it ref decision, and it's like, what's the ref decision based on? Really, it comes down to points. Because they're saying, well, he got a guard pass and he didn't. Instead of calling it 3-0, you call it ref decision. It's like, most of the time when you get the win, when you get the nod, it's like, you could have just written down the points and that person would beat.
One final sponsor shout out to the team at Inner Chimp. Inner Chimp is a brand name that really speaks to grapplers and fighters, one we can believe and relate to on a personal level. Inner Chimp is simply catchy, right? And with small tweaks can be your general gym wear and casual wear and rash guards like this for men, women and children. Inner Chimp is ethically produced and has turned down cheaper production overseas to ensure this. Understanding we only have one Earth, right, which we need to look after. This is at the forefront of their production decisions, and we want you, our listeners and viewers, to have a sense of accomplishment in knowing that you are doing your part when buying their products. Inner Chimp tees are 100% organic cotton. Their packaging, 80% recycled cardboard, and all of their products are designed to last. Their production and manufacturing is in the UK, trying and aiming to be as eco-friendly as possible, leaving close to zero global footprint. But to put it simply, Inner Chimp has a massive passion for the sport, attention to detail, and our planet in mind, and always at the forefront of your own Inner Chimp. Go check out their website, www.inner-chimp.co.uk, or go check out their Instagram at inner_chimp. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Chico Mendes, when he did the seminar here, he said something to me at brown belt that always stuck. He said, you only get points for control in jiu-jitsu. In IBJJF, you only get points for control. So if you up on points...
But then let's be honest with what we're talking about, the guard pulling / like takedowns. That doesn't seem like...
Yeah, I mean, there's borderline cases, but I think you get more borderline cases when it's just ref's decision because it's always subjective, and especially sub-only attempts. When I was watching those, Meow Brothers matches and people are like snapping up in a steamer lock, it's like one sub attempt is like, we all know no one is submitting Joao Meow with a leg lock attempt. Yeah. So it's like, you can do it 50 times in them and go 50-0 on sub attempts, but...
Don't know. I think, do you think one's got it quite well? Because you got one who the referee will call a sub attempt.
Yeah.
So I think he goes catch or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Cat, you caught a sub.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to be a little bit more superior for...
You can hear it and it affects the athlete, so I think that's cool. I like is it Polaris now, they do it in thirds and they call out who's favoured after a certain amount of time.
Oh, is that might be... I think that's flow. The lights go red or blue.
They do blue or red corner is favoured.
Favoured in the blue
and
corner.
that sort of makes the athletes inform what they're doing, which is cool. Instead of looking at a points board and being like, I'm down, I need to... if you're down 2/3, you've got to get the sub sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I'm not disagreeing with it totally. I think I've just heard more stories of points I don't know if it's just being, like I said, biased or the person, individual talking, they're telling me about this, but takeouts like stalling, for example. Right.
This is my next point.
Well, do you know what? You go on to the next point.
No, well, the last sub-only match, sub-only, no time limit is obviously...
Oh, no one wants it.
No one wants it as a spectator, but it obviously is deciding who's better at jiu-jitsu on the day. Like, you can't get around it. I know it becomes a battle of attrition where they call it like a cardio battle.
It's when it gets to like 2.5 hours. I was speaking to...
You can't run a tournament like that. It's impossible.
That was it. Ashley Bendel from Drake. I bumped into obviously at Grapple Fest. We were talking about how they were making time limits for different sort of federations and that kind of stuff. And they were like, we don't want to do 15 minutes. Yeah. Like, give us 5 minutes. Yeah. Because you give me 15 minutes, I'm going to game plan for that 15 minutes. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to stand for the first 5, pull guard for the last, and then we come back to standing again the last 5, right? By me having that mindset, I'm chilling the fuck out, right? I ain't going to be going fucking hell for ever 15 minutes. No one can fucking do it, type of thing. So,
so if you can't have no time limit, you can't run an event like that.
Nope.
That one where they literally took it out into the back.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's like WWE.
We'll check in with them later in a day or two.
It's like Gordon's fighting. They're like, what's happening on the other mat? Oh no, they're still in this weird position. Nothing's happening.
Yeah. they've got their carb. They've got one of those like. Liquid carb things going on.
Definitely.
So you can't do that. You can't do no time limit. Ref's decision, I think, basically comes down to a point system that's in a ref's head. So it's basically like a substitute for points, but it basically is the same sort of like criteria.
Yeah.
But it's subjective, so I'd argue that's probably not even as good. And then you've got the EBI style, which is now the unified.
Ooh.
And it's like you saw Felipe Pena versus Craig, and he's explicitly said, I'm just stalling until we can get to the OT rounds because I know I can do more ride time limit. And that's the main event, that's the headlining fight. And he says, I'm turning up to not do jiu-jitsu and then just do more ride time because that's how I'm going to get the win.
Let's be honest, I think with Nicky Rod getting the win, right, for that tournament, everyone said the same thing in the sense that he played his style, which basically attributed to him going to overtime rules, and then he was just doing his thing.
A lot of people are doing that. It's the safest way.
Yeah, and then the thing is that for me as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I like the idea of seeing Big Dan, for example. Yes, obviously, if you took his frame away, right, but his attribute, like his skill level was there and stuff like that, he had some very good subs, and he subs twice on the lead up to his third match with Nicky. And to the point where I think Nicky passed he went into side control, went into mount, and then came back off to make himself look active, I think it was, in the match, if I remember rightly. And Big Dan just led there, literally just like, you're doing nothing. Like, this is absolutely pointless. And so, again, that rule set's obviously, again, it's tricky because I understand what they're trying to do with the overtime rules, which seem pretty cool, but at the same time they've now been abused.
It worked early on until a bunch of people realised that they could
abuse it, basically.
Get really good at escaping back control fast.
And
that's your path. You've got to do your path to victory if you're an athlete.
Well, is it jiu-jitsu? That's the good question in itself, because if you're able to escape the back really quickly, surely that's an advantage to your game.
I liked Gordon's point is like, we're just doing more jiu-jitsu, people are escaping, or holding it. This is good technique, but if you're just training specifically for that, then you're just binning off 10 minutes to get there. And as a spectator, it's like that's, and then you can contrast that with the Worlds this year in the gi, and there's loads of subs, loads of really exciting matches. Adam Wojcicki's comeback against Felipe Andrew is one of the best matches I've ever seen, and it's like back and forth, and he's down like 9-0, and then it's like a minute left. It's one of the most exciting matches I've ever seen. I thought, if there's OT rounds and he's good at escaping, why do anything? Just stall for 10 minutes.
I think if you compartmentalise it into separate sections, right, then I think just the overtime rules by themselves could actually attribute to people's jiu-jitsu game. It's no different to obviously just
good to train.
Good to train. Again, we've all talked about infamous armbar escapes and having that trusted partner not to fucking destroy your arm in seconds type thing. But it's useful to train type thing. The problem is then people have now abused it. It's kind of like the idea of ADCC rule set. The idea being there's no points for the first 10 minutes was to encourage people to be more active and get into the dominant position. Now
it did work for a while.
Worked for a while, but now it's just become 10 minutes of stalling. Before points.
And you can get infiltrated more and more by a really, really good based wrestler, and he could come and body lock past you and just sit there. And it's a debate. The points versus sub only.
I get it, and I think, like I said, there's arguments to both sides of it, and I think. What was your next point then about stalling?
It was about stalling. I think, how did I write it here? I think personally, stalling, I've written here, as a skill. Stalling as a skill is an important part of the game to learn. Like in training as well.
I like that.
So as a spectator of the sport,
it's shit.
It's death. You can't just watch somebody stall, not naming names. There's certain camps in certain academies in America whose whole game was based around getting early points at the black belt division, blasting people in the first 2 minutes, getting a takedown, and then just sitting on them.
See, it's frustrating because we had two guys, obviously, Wilson and Carson went to the Worlds, and basically had that outcome done to them.
Yep, I've seen it loads of times.
And it seems like that is the general rule of thumb, to be doing this to get you to the position where you need to be, and then start playing jiu-jitsu at the high level. Like you get through to the quarters or the semis, like, oh, we're going to play jiu-jitsu now type thing. But stalling just to get to, it's the same thing. It seems like everyone's just abusing the rule set now, talking about this out loud, right? EBI, I'm just going to stall until I get to EBI rules. All right, IBJJF, I'm just going to basically stall until I get to the points where it gets a little bit more noticeable. ADCC, same thing. It's a bit of a shame.
But in the club, when you're training for events, But just as a skill, even if you're not competing, what I've noticed getting to black belt, when I was trying to get to black belt or brown belt, when I was rolling with black belts at certain open mats that were beating me, I could see what they were doing, and the biggest thing when people are good, when they're a good level black belt, is they can shut you down. They can shut you down. They can shut your game down almost indefinitely.
Yeah.
So you can't really, they never give you the ball to play, sort of thing. And so they can turn on the offense, but then you're sort of open. It's like leg locks. They say you don't technically have to, but you have to give a leg to get a leg, sort of thing. Offense is always going to be opening you up. You can lock people down, and you're not doing anything, but you're stopping them. But I think as a skill, you have to be able to shut someone down, and then you choose when you're going to do offense. You set the pace of the match.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean go and stall for 10 minutes, but it's a skill I don't think.
What is it? So you say it's a skill for 10 minutes. It's a skill you need to require.
If you can lock someone down for 10 minutes, then you can do it for 30 seconds while you get a breath and then move to your next attack, sort of thing. But I don't think people train it at all with that in mind.
I think now you kind of pitch it in a slightly different manner, right?
It's not for being a spectator of a sport. That is awful.
It's not. I remember one match in particular against a guy who was like a powerlifter from Wales, and he was big, fucking big. Right, I was taller than him, but he was just big, stacks as fuck. And I was up by 2 points, right? And every time I was trying to evade him, I was getting basically pummeled, like jumps back on, and I was like, right, I'm getting a turtle each time. It's fine. Let's just hold turtle.
Yep.
And I think it was like a minute 30 left on the clock, and I looked over, I saw us 2 points up. I'm like. Corner's like, oh, roll out. I'm like, no. I'm sitting there because if I roll out, I know he's just basically going to try and rhinoceros me and just come straight charging at me again type thing. And then it's 50-50 as to where that position's going to be. Right, am I going to be lucky enough to be able to get back in the closed guard and keep on working from there? Or I can just look like I'm moving in the turtle position right now. Sorry, viewers, obviously maybe completely slandering me in the comments for this, but that was just the idea. I was like, I want the win.
It's got to be done.
It's got to be done. And so
winning's a skill. I think stalling's a part of it.
Yeah, I think it's tactical stalling, but unfortunately, it's trying to do it in the right place at the right time. But
I just think, like I said, the good black belts I train with have that skill in their back pocket if they need it, and I think people are so against it as a spectator of the sport that people think, well, that's, I'm always going to be open every moment of every roll in the club, and so everything's flowy and rolly and transitions to different positions, and you're always kind of exposed all the time.
It kind of opens up the conversation, then, is it down to obviously your opponent then? If you're closing it down rather than stalling, right? Because it's like a negative context and a positive.
That's what I mean. Yeah, maybe I should word it differently.
Stalling would be a bit more negative, right? It's you as a practitioner then, obviously, to then overcome that, right? It's like...
That's what I mean. The other side of it, defensively, is good to have people stall you out and have to try and break them open.
Because we've all been there with someone who's got a ridiculously tight turtle, right? And they're just not moving for the life of it. Hey, it's boring as shit. We all fucking hate it. Yeah. But to some degree, it then highlights that, are your techniques not good enough to break this turtle and get into a better position? So... I don't know. I think it's a tricky one. It's a very contextual sort of like argument, again, depending on the circumstance. No one wants to see it done at IBJJF where people just sit and stall in closed guard and have 2 points to get to the next round. It's very fucking boring jiu-jitsu. But at the end of the day, I think bit of a slight tangent, but it was watching the recent UFC event, right? Good card. However, there's only one fight that got me on the edge of my seat. Like, what the fuck's going on here?
Okay.
And this was Dan Hooker versus the Spider, I think his name was, right? Or the Tarantula. On the edge of my seat, fucking amazing. And it was like, what about the rest of the card? Do you not enjoy it? I said, yeah, but it wasn't Robbie Lawler versus like Rory McDonald type thing.
Yeah.
And I then came to realise that am I now looking for like something to always surpass these fights for me to be like, oh my god, this is the best thing, yeah. And I think that's as spectators and fans of different sports that sometimes we
ramping up. You always
want something more than what you've seen already.
I just always live for jiu-jitsu. I scrub along the UFC. I'm like, they went to the ground. Back up a little bit. How did they go to the ground? Okay, have a look at that.
And it's the same thing when it comes to flow, it comes to IBJJF, Grapple Fest, that type of thing.
There's no perfect rule set.
No.
It just doesn't exist.
And I think it's then we're kind of yearning for that next big thing, right? And unfortunately, we all cringe when we see an arm break or a leg break or something like this, yeah? But again, it'll come to a point where when that becomes like the only thing that we're now seeing all the time.
That's the only thing people want,
Yeah, and it's like, where does that then go from there type
Those
thing?
clips go viral,
They do.
But anytime they try and make a rule set that gets rid of stalling, I think it's like you see Quintet in Japan. Some of the stalling calls, it's like you got Gordon Ryan mounted someone hunting subs, and they're like, action, and then they stand them up, and he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, you were in mount for 30 seconds. They're like, yeah, but I got to high mount, I had his arm.
Wow.
And it's like, no, we want action. We just want to see flying arm bars, and if you're not doing that...
I'll get your opinions on our rule set for our little thing that we're doing. So
wicked.
Yeah, that'll be cool. What have we got next? Any more on the list?
So some of these are defendable. Some of them less so. This one might get me in trouble. BJJ has almost no application for self-defense.
Ooh.
Shut the camera off. That's all going.
What? You sound like Andrew Tate here.
No,
Break it down. Go on.
I think the situation you have to be in, I think it's got application for any fight that you could have just walked away from. I think if it's two people, antagonise each other, matching their energies, coming up to here, and it's a one-on-one thing. I've been in loads of situations like I walked away from. If I didn't, jiu-jitsu probably would have come into play.
Yep.
The stuff that you would walk away from, but you can't, like physically, you're in a place where you can't, or there's multiple people, or they got weapons or something.
Yep.
This is where I think it all breaks down. And I think the stuff that you can't walk away from has to be so specific. Like I say, one-on-one, no weapons, no friends coming along the way. Environmental stuff, there's not broken glass all over the floor.
I'm sure this is what Tate fucking said. I'm sure of it. He was like, oh yeah, you pull someone to the ground, that type of thing. Your mate comes in and stamps on your head. What are you going to do then?
Well, part of it is not even that I don't think you could win the fight. I just think winning a fight, you still, like you see Andrew Wiltsey on YouTube talking about when you're doing door work.
Yeah, you ain't pulling guard.
Well, he said even if you double leg someone, you've just exploded your knee on the ground.
Yeah.
Like if your knee touched the ground, he said you end up with these fights covered in
gashes,
bunch of bruises yourself, to the point it was like, who even won? We're all just rolling around on concrete. We're all destroyed. And then they just come back with weapons, and if they really wanted to have a pop at you and you wanted to walk away, and the sort of person that will not leave that alone is going to come back with people, and it's going to, you see him in town, and I'm still there with my kids, and I've got to avoid people.
Yeah.
And it's like, what situation could you not walk away from that you would have to use this? I thought about kids, like I couldn't run away if my kids were there or walk away.
Yeah.
But it has to be so specific to the point where it's like, and then you have the whole additional conversation of what's martial arts. If there's a bar where it always kicks off after midnight from this bar, and you're in that bar, it's like, what's he doing? Did you want to get swept up into that brawl that happens every Friday night? And it's like, isn't that part of your self-defense? I watched one guy that talks a lot about like, he was like a professional negotiator, so it was all about de-escalation with.
Okay.
And I have a lot of people that, I've got friends that even go to clubs and do like knife defense and things like this.
Yeah, so there's combat jiu-jitsu up at Impact. So.
Was that as well?
Yeah, so a guy called Jane Newton, I think is one of their black belts type of thing. So he talks about how their training is very varied, to the sense that they will drill scenarios where there's 3-on-1, 2-on-1, all this type of stuff.
See, 3-on-1, I just think I lose. There's just no.
Yeah, or like if someone's mounted you with like a weapon or something like this, or going through, and so it's quite funny because we always joke every time I see him, he ends up doing something stupid, like he'll purposely like smother my mouth, for example.
What do you do? What do you do? Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, what are you doing now? Or again, he'll be like, oh, like you just like for a little body shot here and there type of thing, nothing major, but it's just like, it's funny. And I always joke about him and about how he sort of takes it a little bit, not say too far, it's not the wrong word, but he just goes always above and beyond every time. And he explains about the way that they kind of teach stuff is that they also talk about de-escalation tactics, about matching people's energy as well.
But what percentage do you
don't
give your time to each? Like the de-escalation and the verbal tactics, like no one does. It's like you say you're in this for self. I know people that exclusively train for self-defense, and it's like you don't know anything about the mental side of it, not matching people's energy, de-escalating. Most people want to win a fight without having the fight. They just want you to walk off and go, yeah, you walk away.
But then there's the other argument.
Let them have it, just walk off.
I think there's the other argument behind it, which in terms of self-defense, right, there's an element of confidence needed, obviously, to initiate any of that if it's required, right?
Yeah.
And also the realization that we're not made of glass. Because some people would back down from a scenario which they may, I'm not encouraging people to back down from scenarios, but may end up backing down from a scenario which they're not in the wrong, right?
There is a point where it's like, I'm here as well, I don't have to leave.
Yeah.
But then maybe it's kids that's changed it. If I went home and I got into a fight because my ego told me, well, I'm in this bar too, you can't tell me where to go.
I'm a karate black belt, I'll kick your ass.
Let's
go, son.
I train UFC.
I train UFC, I love that.
Yeah, but I don't know, maybe I had a situation literally a couple of weeks ago with some kid who was behind me in the car in a Tesco's car park, kicked off, thought I got too close to him, he like tried to nip behind me right at the last minute. I was like, sorry mate. He kicked off when I parked the car, I sat there for a minute, and he was walking up to the car like, go on then, what's happening here sort of thing. I think there was two of them.
Yep.
In my head, I'm like, I think he looked a bit young, he was about 19 or something. He wasn't very big, and I was like, I got my baby on board sign on my family wagon. I'm like, do I get out of my car in the Tesco's car park? It's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't think I would have struggled to take this kid down and like done jiu-jitsu on him. But it's like, I can just also drive away.
Yeah.
And it's like self-defense is like what you're actually trying to do. And then you've got the extremes of the Leandro Lows when it's like, you can take someone down and mount them, and they come back with a weapon. It's like, you can't really win a fight. Do you know what I mean?
You can't. It's like it's contextual again, obviously, with a lot of these things. And I think jiu-jitsu, the way it's growing, I think it's moving away from the self-defense element.
Definitely.
Right, and that you don't.
The sport keeps people interested.
Keeps people interested. It's a good sport to be having. I think there's elements of self-defense which are very useful, but there's elements as well which need to be contextualized to say that you are not putting guard on someone, right? You are not going to go and leg lock someone, right?
Yeah, but even though it would work,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
it
the
would
average person I could pull guard on and it would work.
Take Matt Serra. I'm sure you've seen that video clip of him in Vegas just mounting someone.
Yeah.
And holding them there.
And Ryan Hall did it.
Yep.
And
it's just a case of like saying, they're not there going from mount to taking the back or bare and boning them or anything like this type of thing and like controlling their back. They're just there saying, look, I'm
Very
safe
simple,
because I'm very far away from you. I'm controlling your hands and we're waiting.
There's no video, but then Leandro Low did the same, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know Sao Paulo is a very different place.
Well, exactly. There's loads of little clips. I think there's a guy, YouTube channel like vlogger that I follow, and he says that he's there in certain countries, and they're like, his like tour guide's like, put the camera down. And it's like, oh, okay, puts the camera down, come back up. It's like, yeah, we know that people just drive past with guns and weapons and all this type of stuff, and they just wouldn't like me filming.
Is this Indigo Traveller? Is it?
Might be.
Yeah, I've been watching him a lot. Yeah,
he comes up a lot. I think he's in
nutty.
Colombia or something like this, or something like that. It's been rental. But any more on the list, or you all done?
The last one's probably the worst one.
Oh, the best one, the best for last.
Testing.
Oh, so we kind of touched on this briefly.
We talked about this offline. We're not offline, but
offline.
Privately.
Privately. Testing. So obviously we're talking about drug testing and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I think it should be. I know the sport hasn't got all the money, right? So I'm not trying to be naive to this, but I think it's growing, and I think more money will be coming its way, right? As things obviously start to escalate and get better and bigger. I think it should be the responsibility of potentially these pro athletes, right, to pay for their own random drug testing.
Okay.
Now, each test costs.
So we're already past. Do you think it's good to test?
Yeah, 100%.
So that's where I was like, good or bad.
I think we should be able to allow to, it's kind of like a safe sex talk, right? In the sense that we speak to multiple different people who reach out to us online and sort of say this and think, I'm thinking about doing this, I'm thinking about doing that, right? And obviously there's a purpose to it. And again, most of the people when they're asking and thinking about doing it, they've already decided in their head they're going to be doing it. Okay?
Yeah, they just want to do it safe.
They just want to do it. And that's my argument, is that you speak to a lot of people who have done stuff, right? I'm sure you've seen this within gyms, but it's also very common within the jiu-jitsu world, right? Oh, what's blood work? I'm like, you've got no idea. And I'm like, that is the condom in this fucking safe sex talk here.
Right.
Yeah. We need to see what you're naturally doing, before we start just injecting whatever the fuck we're doing. Yeah. Now, obviously when people are getting this from other people, it will legitimize what it is. Yeah. It will show you exactly if it is real. It's happened to me previously. I'm quite open about to say this, that I got sold dodgy stuff years ago, and I looked at my blood work and it shows that my testosterone hasn't increased. And I'm like, what's going on here?
You start getting horse symptoms.
Yeah. Can you tell now? This is the face for podcasting, as I say. So, all of a sudden it's like, okay, it helps with that. It allows you to look at other health markers. Yeah. That impacts it. And I think, is it good for the sport? No, it's not, because I think it's not. It's going to be. When you're getting other athletes out there take things like tren, right, which has nothing to do with this sport. That's pure bodybuilding, right, which is where a lot of people are getting information and advice from training, for example.
I hear Chris Bumstead saying he wouldn't touch it, and he's literally a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're seeing, again, not to stereotype, but some Brazilian athletes getting caught with it. It's like, well, what do you expect? Like, this is just stupid. And that's where I feel like more support, more information, more people need to be talking about it openly, rather than it being this deep dark secret that no one discusses.
So what do you think about testing in what IBGF have just started doing? Obviously, if they had more budget, we'd want everyone to test everyone.
They've got more budget, they have, right? They've got plenty of money behind it. ADCC have plenty of money behind them, right?
They are using USADA, right, but not. It's like a very limited
IBJJF
thing.
are using USADA, and it's for certain people who are depending on where they place, from what I understand. I think if you're going to go, I think as a pro, right, I think if we talk about this hypothetical scenario, you get pro status. Yeah, it means it allows you to go to IBJJF events, it allows you to go to AJP, ADCC, all this type of stuff. But you've registered as pro, like a pro boxer, like a pro MMA guy, you need to go and get head scans. Yeah,
right, okay.
And I think a pot of money needs to go to USADA as the athlete, right, to then get you tested randomly throughout the year. Yeah, so you have to test that once. We're not talking £1,000 each and every time. Yeah. To then be like, cool, you've done a random drug test, you've passed the drug test, everyone's on the same level, yeah?
So we're already past the, like, should you, I thought the unpopular side of it, because I'm pro-testing, I thought most people, in jiu-jitsu especially, but in sport in general, are coming down on this argument of just, if you don't test anyone, then we have even the playing field, because everyone can just free reign, everyone can do what that. You see it in other sports, except for maybe MMA, people are more, I remember the Ronda Rousey argument, it was like, we're literally in the sport of damage. So if you give me any performance edge, I'm just hurting people better. And should we maybe try and keep it at this level instead of ramping that up? Because you still get the sporting outcomes, you still get the wins and the losses.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu, you're not really hurting anyone, arguably.
No,
but
it's the level of amount. There's an argument to say that some people, so again, don't get me wrong, you ask me tomorrow, I might change my kind of stance altogether, but not massively, I'd say, but it depends on my guts and feelings, obviously, at the time. There's an argument to say that the amount of training that's needed for them to do this, yeah, obviously their recovery time is going to be hindered, and so if they're competing every week on these big shows to try and make dollar, basically, yeah, not even guaranteed with this, with some of the sort of like GP tournaments, that type of stuff, then they obviously need to be able to look after themselves, yeah. It's a tricky one, because I think the biggest thing that I try and think of long term, right, is how is it going to affect the youth of the jiu-jitsu community?
Well, this is where I got to with kids and everything. Like I was speaking to you on Instagram. When it was Wagner Hoja and Cyborg, and there's an argument. It's, remember, like Anderson Silva back in the day. People like, you've got all that wealth of knowledge, you've got all that experience, you've got years and years behind you, you've got all that skill, technical skill. Essentially, by the time you accrue all of that, your body starts failing on you. You can't, you know, fatigue management goes out the window. Gets into his 40s, and it's like, we just want him to, if we could just get his recovery back to like his 30s, he's got all of that knowledge that you can put back into the machine.
If you look at the UFC, they got to a good level, I feel. I'm not saying they cover everyone, right? But then obviously they put the money into it to go and test them independently. It's then, I think for me, logically to verify it would be to see how much the UFC is turning over in comparison to IBJJF or ADCC.
I mean, even where it is now, where they're only testing the number one spot, isn't ideal for just pure fairness sake. But it's still, I would prefer it exists than not.
Yeah, I prefer it to be there. I don't know if it would encourage the person who came in second to then go, I'm going to take more to get that spot, even if they didn't test, if they did the number
just
one.
Just roll the dice. But I mean, I was sort of on board with everyone else, where it was like, just open it up when it was TRT conversations and
that conversation
43-year-olds.
In the UFC, remember? And it was like, what's Chael Sonnen running? Like 4 times the amount of the average person type of thing. And then he talks about John Jones being like, you know, when you know your people, and he grabbed me and I felt fucking weak type thing. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, what are you on?
And it's like, what is TRT?
Yeah.
But it was Mika for me. It was Mika, because like, you're popping at 18, so he's definitely on climbing at like 17, and then there's speculation it was between like 13 and 15 he hopped on stuff, and you're like, obviously his dad's his coach, and it's like, who knows what in his gym. And I got kids, I got 2 boys, only 1 and 2 now, but you know, kids of parents who train like me, and I'm obsessed with jiu-jitsu, might do something in the sport one day. It's not, he might not get into it at all. If he decides he wants to train every day like a maniac and make it like a thing, like a will, like a someone who wants to do it all the time and take it seriously and hit the comps, to know that barrier of entry is there. There's no one more naturally talented than Mika Galval. Like, he is like the most naturally gifted person I've ever seen.
That's the point of
and he still feels like he has to do that.
Yeah, and that's the problem. But then again, I try and sit in everyone's shoes in terms of from their perspective, right? And we have cases within boxing, within cornermen, sort of saying, have the special water bottle quickly, right, and it being laced with cocaine, right, for them to be like, right, we're getting fired up, ready for the next round type thing. So that's been going on for years. There's always situations with that, and you'll see athletes will consider trying to get that extra edge performance, right, even if they think it's legal or not, and you obviously get parents with that encouragement as well, right, and depending on who you've got around with you, the environment that you're in, the place that you live type of stuff. You and me both know if we went to Mexico or Thailand, you can get as much testosterone as you want completely free of charge. Not free of charge, you've got to pay for it, but there's no legalities around it. Yeah. So it's then one of those things of then saying, okay, whose responsibility is it? Because was he aware? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a slightly different, I guess, conversation if it's like coach, athlete. There's some.
It's been known, for example, like there'll be Russian athletes, again, not to stereotype this, but rubbing in oils into the gymnast, which was based on testosterone and stuff like this. So it's a tricky one.
In the steam rooms, I've heard this.
Yeah,
breathe soaking in it. But but it's still sort of the same argument, because if the coach feels like if his dad feels like Mika needed that, I think what I said to you privately was, it's the ramping up effect. If there's no testing, see, this exists as like, it's not to get rid of PEDs because you're not going to.
No.
But it keeps it at a level where people can go, wow, Mika, if he didn't have that doctor's note, would have got 3-year suspension.
But then does it get a bit more deeper than this, right? And this comes back to the Olympic testing level, geopolitical power. Yeah.
And you're not going to stop it.
Right.
Like it's
so
going to exist.
All of a sudden, so to give you an idea, so when they had the Russian Federation that were obviously enhancing all the athletes as much as possible, right? The idea being was to actually win more votes within the political system for Russia. Or if it was for Putin, actually, he was on low on the points at the time, right? Within the community, winning the Winter Olympics at that time, put his points up massively. He then obviously went and invaded, I think it was Georgia at the time, right? To be able to go and do this big movement. But the Olympics was there, yeah? All of a sudden, if you've got one of your pride and joys of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, yeah, do you want him to be losing?
I see what you mean.
So is there a motive behind it? It's obviously, again, IBJJF being obviously Brazilian based and everything like this. Again, you look at his ban as well.
There's no favouritism, come on.
Poor her. So yeah,
but I just think it keeps it on it doesn't get rid of it. The current state, maybe not ADCC, it's getting a bit crazy, but IBJJF, when they sort of cycling off stuff, if my kid came to me and was like, I want to make a crack at the Worlds, if we had to take what people are taking now at the Worlds, it would be like, well, I know that's not bodybuilder level crazy, because natural bodybuilding comps, people take stuff, right? They're trying to...
Yeah, they do.
There's
so
testing.
There is testing, and so it's interesting enough that even pre-workouts, they will advise them to not take certain things a week before to keep out of their system.
But people still skirt the rules, people on SARMs and things. There's things they try and, get out of the system quick and compete.
I think in summary, mate, it's people taking advantage of the rules, basically. And that's been the case throughout this whole podcast, if I'm honest, is that it's just people looking at the rules and kind of trying to bend them and work to their sort of angle and their way. I think that's the problem nowadays, that everyone's trying to gain an advantage rather than necessarily do the basics and just be good at what they're doing. And unfortunately, what it takes is for one bad egg to necessarily sort of say, right, I'm going to do more than the rest of it, and then people catch wind of it.
And then someone will do this.
And keep on doing all this. They'll become a ceiling of it. Right?
Like my kid came to me and said, I want to be a professional bodybuilder. I'd be like, I can't get behind that because of what it's like these days with insulin and people dying in hotels the day before and diuretics and stuff. I'm like, I can't be like, yeah, great, go for it. And if jiu-jitsu is not tested like ADCC, ADCC is what it is now. And you get Muhammad Ali looking like a house the day off, and you're like, what is going on? In 5-10 years' time, if it really takes off spectator sport, and you get like NFL level athletes being like, I'll have a pop, I'll just learn some wrestling or whatnot, and it's like, what is it going to be in 10 years with no testing? It's going to be pride. It's going to be pride.
It's going to be pride again, but at the same time.
And if your kid comes to you, it's like, yeah, go and do pride. It's like, see you when you're 50.
It's hard, mate. So you say 5-10 years time, obviously they're moving down to being at T-Mobile Arena. That's a big
when there's money involved and no testing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So low level testing, crappy testing, only testing the number one spot. Not ideal, but it just keeps PDs like here rather than sky's the limit.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just, I think it comes very similar to, I'll summarise it with this point, is that there's an argument that the American government allows a certain amount of drugs to come into the country so the Mexican cartel don't kick off.
Okay.
Right, it's like that whole level of like, we don't test, it keeps it a little bit lower rather than people trying to exaggerate it.
Right, okay.
Do you see what I mean? Like allowing an element of it, but not too much. But
Well, that wasn't that controversial then. I thought that
No, we had a comment this morning on one of the reels, and I was like, I've already been thinking about that type of thing altogether. But
okay, that's cool.
Any more controversial stuff?
I think I tapped out. I think I just like stopped writing. I just probably could kept going forever, but
well, we've got a couple more questions, mate. So we'll do the one which was from the previous guest, right? If you had to change the name of jiu-jitsu, right, to describe it to a person who's never heard of it, what would you call it and why?
I don't know. What's that thing people call it, like death yoga or something? What's the saying? Someone calls it like murder yoga or something.
Murder yoga.
I don't know. I thought that was quite cool. Yeah. Yeah, let's go with that.
Murder yoga.
Murder yoga, yeah.
That's the question I was thinking in my head. I was like, I don't know how I was answer that. Because that's the average person. Like, how would you describe jiu-jitsu without calling it jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, murder yoga. I guess you do yoga on your own though, so maybe it's like more like Twister. Twister with consequences.
Murder twister. All right.
Murder twister. Yeah.
Murder twister. Yeah. I love that. Final question for you, mate, which is kind of our staple question, which came from one of the previous questions that we had. Not to get it confusing, but which failure do you cherish the most?
Failure, jiu-jitsu wise?
Anything, mate.
Anything?
Could be jiu-jitsu, it could be anything else.
My worst failure that I cherish the most, that I've kind of learnt from, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it was the late teens, early 20s, when it was all health in the toilet, mental panic attacks, all that stuff. No one teaches you that stuff. There's no education at school about get a workout in. It'll make you feel better.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. So I guess going through that and then stumbling on workouts, nutrition and that sort of stuff, I guess I got so hardcore into it because of that 10 years that was a bit rough. So maybe that's kind of like a life failure, that decade of just kind of like treading water in a bad state.
Dan Strauss mentioned that you kind of grow up twice. You have the growing up phase with your parents looking after you, this type of thing. Yeah, you get into your early teens and responsibility gets put onto you to some degree, and then you end up going through the same learning again, right? To the point where you realise
all the stuff they didn't teach you at school.
Yeah, and the idea being, my parents set me a bedtime because it makes me feel good the next day.
Oh man, when I first got to my own flat, the diet, Jesus,
everything goes out the window. Yeah,
it was like no one can tell me what I can't eat, and I'm such a
and now all of a sudden
binge eater.
And
it's like curries 4 times a week. It was
and now all of a sudden we're back to the point of like, actually, hold on, I can't be doing this. There's a reason why I can't be doing this.
I definitely consider that a failure, just going off the rails like that.
Yeah.
For a solid at least 5 years, and then correcting it.
Well, actually, speaking of, I forgot to ask this question. So, once you had some good submission, or you got your next jiu-jitsu competition win at black belt, what's the post-comp meal going to be?
Dominoes. I mean, I just, like I say, eat clean, nice, good, healthy diet, and then I just bang in chocolate. It's just chocolate.
What Dominoes is it?
Dominoes is meat, just all the meat.
All the meat.
All the meat.
I'm going to edit that in, just all the meat.
just put every type of meat you can put on it. That's yeah, doesn't make me feel good. The amount of salt in that doesn't make me feel great the next day. But
no, not at all. Well, we've already done your grip strength test off camera, so we'll put the leaderboard up at some point.
Oh, don't, it's embarrassing.
It's fine, it's no problem. A couple of things from us. One from our sponsors, Grapplers Soap, mates. That is
for amazing.
You. Okay.
Oh, we didn't get into that. How I might need that with the old itch thing.
That's fine. I've obviously messaged a few people about that. It's fine. Little patch for you go on the gear if you're allowed to wear it. And
wicked, man, awesome.
And then, obviously, if you've got any other questions in the future, obviously, you know where I am. You always just hit me up and everything. But it's been great having you on, dude, and just really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.